The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. What's happening? Benton here. It's my pleasure and honor to address whoever tunes into this live stream today. Much appreciated. I'm out of my normal routine. It's interesting how comfortable the arguably neurodivergent, undiagnosed fake autistic folks such as myself, I sure do get comfortable in my routines. Just went to the bathroom, and I've been wanting to rinse my eyes out with water, but the last several times I visited the restroom, I failed to have my soap with me. Not a fan of whatever soap is in the restroom already, typically antibiotic in nature. So finally managed to get over there with my hippy dippy soap, and we had quite the collection of eye boogers. It's hilarious. I believe myself to be, somewhat accomplished in certain arenas or avenues of life, and arguably intelligent in various ways. And I've been running around for a couple of days with the eye boogers. So shout out to that. Oh man, it's always a pleasure to reiterate Psalm 23. Uh, Now, some of the fun of that for me is finding out who's triggered by Bible verses, right? Pretty sure I could get on here and read the Bhagavad Gita uh, or some such other writings and offend no one, offend absolutely zero of the um, wicked spirits, demonic spirits, unclean spirits that may be inhabiting and influencing individuals. And I'm going to do my best not to preach on this one, but you never know when we might we might be subject to some powerful preaching. So, but if I endeavor to avoid that, perhaps we will get there. I've been wanting to update the audience and got some interesting anecdotes. And I do have a page of notes here as well. Shout out to the chat. The way I'm sitting, I'm not able to read the chat, and I probably won't actually be checking out the comments until I've covered at least a few of these points. As people may well know, I tend to allow myself to become distracted in a good way, of course. Well, I should say I sidetrack myself sometimes by getting involved with the comments too early in the stream. Um, so I've left Los Angeles, and I suspect some of the more tapped in and attuned folks with my habits and predilections may have sensed that something was afoot. And I may get into the reasons why. I'm sure I will. And before anybody can ask, and thank you for caring, if you're concerned, I drove my Nissan Versa from Los Angeles starting Saturday, the day before the Los Angeles Marathon, the LA Marathon. Drove to Weatherford, Texas, general vicinity of Weatherford, Texas, and I've already taken a drug test for a potential long haul trucking gig. Um, I don't know that I'm excited about that necessarily. I'm certainly grateful for the opportunity. Um, and truck driving's a little bit different because, you know, they say that they're offering you a job, but are offering me a job, but realistically, until I have the fuel card and I've been through the orientation and been assigned a truck and been dispatched on a load, I don't. It's not really official until then. And I'll have more to say on that drug screen here momentarily. Now, let's talk about the main thing is the eggs. I'm in an egg wonderland out here, man. Not just the price. Now, while the selection was beginning to return to some extent by the time I left Los Angeles, and the selection here is certainly not perfect. I've been going to various stores um, and taking note of what's in stock versus what's out of stock. HEB seems to have the best in stock rate, and that's a local chain. It's a Texas uh, grocery chain. In fact, was named the number one grocery chain in the country at a certain point. I'm a big fan, but it's a little more acceptable to park and sleep in one's car in the Walmart parking lot. So as a result, I've been purchasing most of my eggs at the Walmart. They have the Eggland's Best 18 pack. Uh, that's the ones that are fed the flaxseed or whatever to get more omega 3s. The white ones, white eggs. 18 for $6.40. What a blessing. What a blessing indeed. Now that's not in stock all the time, so I already moseyed over and grabbed some. So unless they get more, they will be out by tomorrow. And man, it's been freezing. I was freezing my ass off in LA. Uh, it's been cold here. It's super fucking windy. But then it was 85. One day I was here, it was 80, then it was 85. I think it's supposed to be 85 today, although that might be tomorrow. And if everything comes out properly on these drug test results, I believe my orientation will be on Monday. Um, but we will see how that goes. It's not a good thing or a bad thing, me working. It's more of just a thing, I would say. In the past, I've uh, noted that when I would return to truck driving, and that's probably back when the audience skewed a little more female than it does at present, but there would be some measure of excitement about and congratulations. And it's like, nah, I don't really think that's in order. The fact is, I haven't worked in an entire year. And because I meet the qualifications that this company's looking for, I submitted my application electronically through a thing called Driver's Pulse. So as soon as they receive the application, they go ahead and qualify me with their insurance. And a lot of that is based on, my record. Do I have tickets and accidents and all of this? And I don't. And, do I have a valid, DOT medical card? Yeah. Do I have a valid license? All of these things. And then then I'm hired, which means I'm really in the pre-hire. Um, because some people will go to the orientation and the company takes one look at them and is like, no, hell no. Um, but I do have enough of the glib charm. I'm sure I'll be all right when I show up in person on Monday. Now, last time I returned to truck driving, I had a problem where I was eating a lot of watermelon, and I've had these kidney issues. And again, please no health advice in the chat. Um, the kidney's just a small part of the chronic illnesses I've coped with over the last 3+ years, and grateful to have the issues to cope with. By the way, I would prefer not to have them, but you know, the strength to adapt and overcome, certainly without having to without having to subject myself to medical coding and billing, right? As we know, everything in America is a business, especially the medical system, who will happily ruin my quality of life. Um, in exchange for being able to code and bill, right? And at the end of the day, I will, other than mitigating some of the pain, perhaps, I will not be cured through the medical system. That's just not how that works, unfortunately. Oh, apologies. I'd forgotten why I brought up my kidneys. So yeah, this the first truck driving job I thought I was going to take way, when I left the hotel. It's over a year ago now, right? Amazing how time flies. And I was eating all this watermelon, and I did not intend this, but my sample came back diluted because there was not enough. They call it the specific gravity. There was not enough creatinine in my by volume, right, parts per million or whatever in my urine, and the company had no idea what to do. I don't believe they had ever run into this situation, and I researched it myself and said, well, actually, it's not considered a failure. It's that you guys are able to retest me if you want, and if and when I pass the test, then you're able to employ me. And I think they were just confused and did not really understand, and probably thought there was some shenanigans at play, and demurred, right? And then I ended up with really the only trucking company. And by the way, people who are not familiar with truck driving in the United States, it's a nightmare industry. There is no good trucking company. They're all bad. We as truck drivers, and I don't really identify as a truck driver. It's something I'm qualified and able to do and willing to do under the right circumstances to earn money, right? But we pick our poison. So this last company, and again, a prophet hath no honor in his home country. Although I have worked for an Arkansas company before, but this last company, the only time I've ever done reefer or refrigerated, and it's really the only company I have anything bad to say about. I don't really have any bad words for any of the other companies. Um, Certainly not going to be doing any more reefer. Shout out to the chat. Good to see you, Razvan. I know Razvan's probably excited. That's cool, man. It's good to see your recent video. Razvan is low key hilarious. I didn't realize the comedy factor. So maybe Razvan will drop his link. He's wrenched up. Uh, it was funny hearing Razvan because he's a truck driver over in the United Kingdom, and hearing him talk about uh, that there was a depot, I think they call it over there, where he was picking up a load of water, cases of water, pallets of water, and like there was nobody there to load his trailer, and they had him. First, they put him through this annoying orientation where he had to go, get trained up on how to operate their facility or whatever, as if he works for them, by the way. Now he's their employee. He's kidnapped. Razvan was kidnapped. Every truck driver, long haul truck driver, can relate to this, being kidnapped. Some of these places that we go to kidnap us. And then they were like, here's your fucking, and I think they have different terminology in the UK, but basically, here's your pallet jack, your motorized pallet jack, your hand truck thing. Go load your truck, partner. It's like, what? Why am I doing the labor, right? Well, the reality is, because the truck driver, and I don't mean Razvan specifically, because the truck driver is foolish enough to do it. That's the only reason, right? If every single driver that went there said, hell no, I ain't doing that, and just left, right? What would happen? What would happen is the facility would have people there ready to load the truck. But, we've got our own lives. We have things to do that preclude us from just saying, fuck off, I'm not doing this. Tends to screw up the rest of the schedule, I would imagine. But yeah, I got a kick out of that video. Certainly. I think Razvan's point was, if I'm down here doing the work of whoever, operates the facility, does that mean I get to go to his house and have relations with his wife? Because after all, like, I'm putting food on his table, more or less, which, that was my paraphrase of what Razvan had to say. But yeah, the only reason I'm concerned about this drug test and the dilution is I pussed out the morning of the drug test, and I also kind of forgot that I was going to take a drug test that day. And usually I wake up, in the middle of the night and I'll just chug a bunch of water. I'll be thirsty and I'll just drink like half a liter to a liter of water, just like in my sleep, more or less. The thing about that is that when it's already cold and it was like 40, it was 37 degrees. It again, not that cold except when one's sleeping in a car and is already at a low body weight. And I intentionally don't eat within like 5 hours of bedtime. I'm probably going to have to start. Although at this point I can just wait it out. It's about to warm up, hopefully. But this extended winter that's going on. But so I was like, fuck that. I'm not chugging a bunch of water, and then cool me down. And the water's 45 degrees or whatever, and I'm chugging water, and it makes me cold, just like a hot drink will warm a person up. And then it's like, okay, it's time to go take the drug test. I like to do everything early in the morning. First thing. They don't even do appointments, which I like. It's like, hey, I'll just show up right when they open. Then it was like, wait a minute, now I gotta urinate, and I failed to drink this water, and the water actually, just for those who may not realize, that won't really make it doesn't really make a person go to the bathroom. Water in and of itself, actually something like coffee, soda, not that I recommend soda, but coffee, tea, what have you. I've been off the coffee for like 2 months. I went and got Starbucks. That helped to some extent. But then just looking, and I've researched drug testing a lot. I've been going in bottles a lot. As part of my health journey, I monitor. I can learn a lot about my health by looking at my urine, all these type of things. And I'm looking at what I'm putting in the cup, and even after I got there, I still had to wait like 45 minutes. So I was like, hey, basically when I went to check in, I was like, hey, once I check in, like how long do I have to submit a sample here? And they said, well, what are you here for? I said, DOT. They said, you got 3 hours. And then they don't want to bring me back there and set everything up, and then I can't go. So I was like, hey, I'll just chill here. And, we mutually agreed I'll just chill here in the waiting room and, sip a little water, and I'll let you know. And, but looking at what I put into the cup, it was like, I'm like, damn, am I risking, I'm risking this dilution again. Now this company, since they just hire whoever, whereas that company that passed on me before, I actually like had several phone interviews. It was some kind of like quasi local dedicated type of thing, and they were a little skeptical because of my spotty work history. This company did not even ask me why I didn't work for a year, which I respect on some level, because it's sort of communicating like, hey, nobody wants this job except for you know more or less people like you, Benton, that sleep in your car and do live streams and just sort of do whatever you want. But then I might work there if I like it. I might work for a year. Who knows? um, we shall see how that goes. Well, Razvan's in the chat, so let me check in with the chat real quick. Shout out to 14 in the house. Quality over quantity these days. Yeah, there you go. Webasto diesel fired heaters. That's right, Razvan. Make trucking great again. Oh man, don't get me started, Razvan. Yeah, next they will ask you to stock their shelves. Well, and that's and we'll get into a little bit of inside baseball with the truck driving. That was one of my gripes with this last company, was the rates were so bad. See, that was going. Why am I stuttering? Calm down, Ben. See, that was like an autistic, spastic, blurting out right there. That's more evidence of my undiagnosed fake autism, whatever that was. Right, completely involuntary. But since I'm meditating and monitoring myself in real time, I caught it. Right, it's like, wait a minute, what is this? A B. That's all, folks. All right, take a breath. Breathe, Heber, breathe. Oh man. So they would send me to the Northeast, typically Pennsylvania, which I actually don't mind Pennsylvania. It's mostly the rest of the Northeast, although I was going to New Jersey here and there. And New York State, fucking hate New York State. And yeah, even upstate. I wasn't going to the city, but anyway, I digress. I kind of like Buffalo's not bad. I don't mind Buffalo. I will say that. Um, so because the rates were in the toilet, part of the company's strategy is they just want to break even. At that point, they're just trying not to lose money on me as a driver with they're leasing the tractor and then whatever my salary is, per mile and all of this. And, I was a W-2 employee, so they're having to match my whatever I'm paying into Social Security and all of that FICA nonsense. And it is nonsense, but I don't want to get off on that right now. But so then, and I told them I did not want to go to the Northeast, but I said, yeah, I will, but I'm not doing Northeast to Northeast. Like I'll go there, then the next load I need to leave there. So there was even times I ran like Ohio to Philly, Philly to Ohio, Ohio to Philly. That's fine because we're not running Northeast to Northeast. And then they started giving me Northeast to Northeast loads. And here's the problem with that. And this ties into what Razvan is saying. If I'm going to run all over the Northeast, I would have to be insane to do it for 65 cents a mile because if I just move to the Northeast, it pays double, right? I would make twice as much money. That's not an exaggeration. Like, because, as much as culturally, I'm not a huge fan of the Northeast, although I do appreciate some of the folks from the Northeast. Not a huge fan of the culture of the region. They're not foolish enough to do that type of job in that region of the country, for 65 cents a mile. That's nuts. But then here's my Podunk, Arkansas company trying. And it's really just treating me like, it's showing me what they think of me, right? Which fair play. That's good on them, and I quit, right? Which is what I did. Which is a shame because I really liked my truck, although for some reason the air conditioner they were not able to get the. It kept going into the shop because it was a brand new truck and the air conditioner did not work. That's right, Breaker 19. Come on. I do enjoy driving. That's the crazy part is I like driving. Like even my little car, I enjoyed driving out here from LA. I did most of the driving at night, although quite a bit of it in the daytime, but I would start out at nighttime, pull over and make my egg concoctions. And I've been eating a lot of dark chocolate, although not that 85%, more of in the middle, right? Like milk chocolate, not milk chocolate and not the 85%, like kind of in the middle of that. So still quite a bit of sugar, but I'd say I'm pretty well hooked at this point. Uh, and that ties in, see, I'm all over the map. That ties into why I think my sample might have been diluted because I've been eating a lot of fruit. And if we remember my health issues, I get gout, right? Or I have gout. If anybody knows what gout is. And normally, especially when I've been in my normal routine in Los Angeles, I experienced almost no gout symptoms. I was walking a lot, good, really good for the circulation in the lower body. I was drinking, a lot of water. So I noticed, I guess, on the trip out here, maybe I wasn't drinking as much water. My body was used to me drinking like a liter of water minimum in my sleep, And I had a pretty serious gout attack where it woke me up. My toe was hurting so bad it woke me up, and I actually thought I had maybe an ingrown toenail because I had my foot jammed up against the fucking door of the car. And I do have the high tolerance for pain, and fucker woke me up, and then I'm pulling my sock off. I'm trying to figure out, is my toenail infected? And then I'm thinking, well, it could be the gout. And I'm like, well, shit, I'll please let it be a gout attack. I don't want to deal with a fucking infected toenail. And my what I used to tell people when they did not believe I was homeless, I said, hey, don't make me take my shoes off because I might not look homeless. My motherfucking toes look homeless. Try not to be too graphic. I know a lot of the audience is easily grossed out, but I got a little bit of the fungus. I got a little bit of the athlete's foot. Although with the cleaned up diet, it really doesn't bother me. It's more of a visual thing. It seemed like when I was on the seed oils, it seemed like it would itch a lot. My feet would itch a lot. I don't really have that problem now. When I was eating more of a conventional diet in the past. Um, And then the problems, which usually I have the opposite problem. Usually in the morning, I'm going all the time. Like there's times I'll go to the bathroom and then I'll go to the bathroom again like 10 minutes later. And it's not diabetes. It's not a health problem. It's just, I have a lot of diuretics in my health drink. My egg drink has a couple of different diuretics. And, from the water overnight. So then I'm having the opposite problem, and I'm looking at the way the pee looks in the cup, and I'm like, oh man, here we go again. Is this one going to come back diluted? Although some of that I think is the examiner probably. There's probably they can check a box and says, hey, maybe fucking double check this one a little better. Because I know some of those samples they send them off to the lab, but I think some of those they just do like a quick test and you can't tell me these labs aren't saving the money. They can't be running every single sample through the expensive machines. I just don't believe that. But I could tell by the way the people there treated me that they weren't worried about me, going in there and bringing in my own, somebody else's pee or whatever, or trying to fool the test. And I haven't. It's been probably 60 straight days since I've had any cannabis of any type. So I'm not worried about that part of it. I have no worries on the drug testing side. And this company would since they hire anybody, hell, unless they're just going to cheap out and not want to pay another $50 or whatever for the drug screen, they'll probably just test me again anyway. Or I don't know. I have a feeling it'll pass. And actually, um, full send, by the way, I will get into what I mean by that, the title of the stream, but it's a commitment, right? So we're going full send, if anybody's familiar with that terminology. But at a certain point, I'm committing myself. I am now committed to a specific way of living that I may not get into on this stream, but part of all of this was I asked for a sign because I didn't really know it. Like, should I go back into truck driving, or my preference would be to make some money, and I have some things I need to accomplish. The pressures, the financial pressures, and the pressures of needing to renew tags, car insurance, cell phone, all of these things, right? Just the normal pressures of life. This job will solve a lot of that in the short term. Versus, am I supposed to take the path into just, actually living what I claim to believe around, some of the specifics of the Bible that I don't want to get into right now, but around just, I have been taken care of my whole life and provided for up until this point, by the way. And shout out to the audience. In fact, a lot of the folks here, or a lot of the folks that will listen to this, have directly contributed to me being provided for. So, perhaps, and I can't speak for, whatever that force is, right? Whether we call it the Lord, the Most High, Creator, Source, the universe, whatever that is. I can't speak for it, but perhaps, those donations, did serve a higher purpose. It's not really it's not for me to determine if that's the case or not, but, through my own efforts of collecting the cans and bottles, as well as the donations here, some local folks actually gave me some unsolicited donations, believe it or not. Some of the locals, the LA locals, shout out to Echo Park, Los Angeles. Big fan. Love y'all. I don't think any of them watch these, but good times. That's right. Send it. Send it, Razman. Yeah, that's another thing with the gout attack, actually, Clump, is supposedly one is supposed to avoid things like sardines because of the purines, but I found I'm able to tolerate, it's not sardines, it's just, uh, it seems like protein in general is a little rough on my kidneys. So I'd been eating 2 cans of sardines a day instead of 1 can. So I believe that certainly contributed. It put a little more strain on the old kidneys, but which are functioning quite well overall. I'll just go ahead and say, don't cry for me, Argentina. I've been quite happy, and probably going to go back to the beans. Ever since my local rice and bean place jacked up the prices in LA, the canned beans really are not sufficing, I must say. Getting a Northeast company, nothing. What's wrong with it? Yeah, I would say nothing wrong with it. That's the point, Razvan. Is if I moved to the Northeast and worked for a company in the Northeast, it would pay way better. So, and I apologize for not fully making that point. When an Arkansas company thinks they're going to pay me Arkansas wages and send me to New York State, right, or send me to Pennsylvania to deliver, and then send me to New York to pick up, and then have me deliver in New Hampshire or whatever. And I know from running dry van with my first job with Snyder, once a person gets involved in that Northeast to Northeast stuff, it can take a while to get out of that, right? And I know with Snyder, I finally just had to tell the dispatcher, like, hey, I think I've been up here enough. Yeah, get me the fuck out of here. But it's just that, nobody would do those runs for, it's basically me working at a discount. And here's how you know it's bullshit. No company would expect me to do that when the rates are high, because they know drivers hate that shit, and the drivers will just refuse it when the rates are high, because the driver will just say, well, hey, I can just go work for somebody else, right? But when the rates were in the toilet, now they're trying, basically what the company's trying to do is, the company's operating at a loss. I was one of their most productive drivers, at least for that dispatcher. I think he said he had 18 drivers, and they always let it slip that I'm their top guy, for one of them, which just means I'm helping him make his bonus. And a big part of that is just pick up and deliver on time, don't crash into anything, don't get tickets, and work 7 days a week, in my case. And this is back to what we've been talking about on the channel. In a meritocracy under capitalism, I should be the trucking industry's wet dream. Like, I have no fucking, I have no life, right? I'm not trying to get home to the family. Uh, if something goes wrong one week and I don't get my 3,000 miles, I'm not going to be upset. In fact, I'll probably prefer it on some level, right? Like, if I could just drive 2,500 miles every week, that'd be perfect for me. I don't even really want to drive 3,000 miles plus, right? Um, I don't get tickets. I don't crash into stuff. I don't tear up the equipment. I am a little rough on the equipment, but I don't tear up the equipment as far as crashing into shit or hitting things. Um, I'm generally a responsible person, and this is just, again, further proof that you know this idea of what America is supposed to be. It never was true, right? This is not the way to get ahead in life. You know. Now, it is to my advantage. Do I receive advantages at certain times? Yeah, I'm sure I do. Like, my first truck driving job with Snyder, they put me in a brand new, basically they put me in a brand new, like, the best tractor they had, like 3 or 4 months after I started. It's hilarious, and this shows you how people are. Now, he wasn't my friend, but he was like my friend in the training with Snyder. We hung out a lot, and then we actually, and he was about my age, a little older, and we went out with a training engineer together, because this was in they were hiring a lot of drivers back in 2018, and Snyder sent us out on the road for a week with a trainer. They call it a training engineer, and so they would take 2 students, when there was enough of a demand. And so it was me and him with the training engineer. And it's funny, we were texting back and forth, and as soon as I got that new tractor and sent him a picture of that new tractor, I guess he got jealous or whatever. And I'm not wired for jealousy, and it's like that pretty much ended the friendship. I never heard from him again. You know. Um, oh well, I don't know what to tell you, partner. Well, that's what's happened. Exactly, close shop if you're operating at a loss, and that's what's happened in America. And I don't know what it's like now, but every all of the over the road trucking companies were operating at a loss, and I mean for like 6 months to a year. Every single one of them. Now, the ones that already had like negotiated contracts were able to weather the storm a little more, right? But then what happens is when the rates go down so low, as soon as the contracts are up for negotiation, and I know this happened with Balkan, this company I worked for, that there's a guy in the chat here sometimes, although I haven't seen him around lately. Um, Big L, I know at a certain point he told me they lost some of their contracts. They got underbid on some of their, customer freight or direct freight because once the rates go down, once that contract's over, then it's going to be renegotiated, right? And a lot of trucking companies have gone out of business, Razvan. In fact, we had the largest trucking bankruptcy a couple of years ago, 2 to 3 years ago now, which was Yellow or YRC, which was, I think, Yellow Roadway went out of business. They were a big LTL carrier, less than truckload. And government money, by the way, government money. The government had pumped like 500 million into them, kept them going for like another year and a half or whatever. It's fraud, man. It's all fucking fraud. It's all fraud. Anyway, I don't want to even get into that. That's right. Working at a loss means the CEO can't buy the new Rolls Royce this year. Yeah, he's going to have to wait till next year. But see, this is part of how the big companies win in the end, because companies like Snyder, JB Hunt, the big dogs, what happens with the big dogs is they like it, right? Because they know they've got enough cash to weather the storm. And they know that, the fact is, and this is the idea under capitalism, that competition is a sin, which means, it's not that basically the corporations want to get large enough to not have to compete against the other large corporations. Then they will all work together to beat the fuck out of the little guy. And the little guy, all the little companies trying to do is get big enough to either sell out and cash out, right? To get up to like 300 trucks or whatever, sell it to a larger carrier, right? And then cash out, which is isn't that antithetical to what America's supposed to be? Isn't America supposed to be, we're going to establish some multi-generational business and pass it down to our kids and all of this? Which again, do whatever you want. I'm for freedom, but, or, even a company like Swift, I think they started in like 1990, and then they were, one of the biggest carriers by like the early, it did not take that long for them to become one of the largest carriers, right? And a lot of that's probably risk taking and just sort of rolling the dice and, having access to enough credit to be able to buy a whole bunch of tractors and, have the capacity to undercut the competition, and run lean and, all of these things that go along with business. But once they get to a level of a JB Hunt, a Snyder, a Swift, where, they are recession proof in a way, because, they have access to credit and lending. They have cash, they're generally self-insured, meaning, by the way, like a 300 truck operation, all it takes is one accident, which may or may not be the truck driver's fault, and they're out of business. Now they're uninsurable, right? And trucking is ran by, it really is ran by insurance. And here's another reason why this company will hire a person like me who has the qualifications but hasn't worked in a year. And really, I still don't have a good work history. If you actually examine my work history, it's dog shit. Now, I've never one time done the one thing that this industry hates more than anything else, which is job hopping. They hate it when a person takes a job, works there 2 months, and then goes to a different trucking company, works there 3 months, and then goes to another. They hate that shit. I've never done that. Now, I've worked for a company for 3 months and quit, but then I didn't go work for anybody else. Then I just fucked off for 6 months or whatever, for 3 months, and then went back to truck driving. I've never jumped job to job to job, which it seems like, other than accidents and rollovers and DUIs, which even a DUI won't keep somebody out of the industry forever. But job hopping it seems to be the main thing, where finally they'll just be like, no, nobody will hire you at a certain point. They're just like, no, we're done with this. Other than, perhaps just the most undesirable second chance companies, they call them. Is that this company has the driver facing cameras, right? And some drivers just will not drive for a driver facing camera company. My second company ever, Design Transportation, did driver facing cameras. And of course, nobody's watching the cameras, right? Or at least Not unless you give them, not unless I give them a reason to watch the cameras. But now, of course, it's AI watching the cameras. So then if the AI, that's what they told me, was it takes a picture every 6 seconds of the road and the driver, so that if it takes a picture of, like me running off the road, or like, me with my phone in my hand, it's just going to email that to the safety manager, and then the safety manager is going to want to know what's up, right? Uh, Now, the reality is, I would prefer not to have a camera in my face. Uh, However, the reality is, I live in a surveillance state. I'm part of me going back to work is I want to pay $450 for another year of excellent cell service through US Mobile, and I highly recommend US Mobile, by the way. Um, Excellent, excellent company. Um, Big fan. I'm on the Verizon side. They're a reseller. They purchase a bunch of bandwidth and then just resell it. Um, and I was blessed enough to have the money to buy an entire year of service, which is up. Uh, I think I got a month after this month is up. I got one more month left. Um, how did I get off on the? Oh, so I recognize, I'm in a Walmart parking lot right now, one of perhaps the most surveilled public space in the country. Right, this is, the ship has sailed on surveillance. But the fact is, I probably won't be able to live stream while driving, as in the past. That ship has probably sailed. Although who knows, I might get brave enough, but probably not. And by the way, I do need to purchase a phone mount. If I do end up going back to work on Monday, I need to buy about a $30 mount for my cell phone. So if anybody feels like hitting the Cash App or the Venmo, please feel free. Much appreciated. If necessary, I'll just prop it up on the dash somehow, and hope to get away with it until eventually I'll have enough, points from fueling up to get one at the truck stop, or once I get my first paycheck, I'll buy one. Hmm. Yeah, not a big fan, but in my case, it helps me because, again, this is yet another reason why this company will basically hire anybody that's willing to work for them who is able to meet the qualifications. And this company, part of this company's strategy is the lowest insurance rates possible, which means they only want to hire drivers with a clean record, and they only want to hire drivers who don't mind being observed, right? Which is a bit of a self-selecting group, because I'm already kind of saying, okay, I'm not going to do certain things like drive down the road with my phone in my hand, right? Or drive around the truck stop with my phone in my hand, you know, which I don't do anyway. But I told them straight up. I said, "Yeah, I'm mounted on my dash, and I use it for navigation." Oh, that's another thing. I need to buy another. I do a subscription service for a trucker GPS on my phone. It's about $18 a month. And again, you guys don't have to pay for this. It's just if you want to help. I'm not in any way expecting this, right? I'm quite frugal by nature, and with your generous donations over time, and combined with me picking up cans and bottles virtually every day that I was in Los Angeles, I do have enough money squirreled away. It's not a lot of money, but I can absolutely afford the subscription, the first month right now, and probably not in a position to drop $30 on the phone mount. But the fact is, once I deliver the first load, most companies will let you take a draw, which means I'll be able to get like up to, I think, about $150 in cash from the truck stop on my fuel card. So then I'll just buy one with my draw. So, and I don't take draws, but a couple of times when I start with a new company, I'm broke enough to need a draw for the first week or two. But after that, I don't ever take a draw, because I'm good with my money, and there's no mama. I ain't got mama and kids to send. I'm not sending money home, which is a good thing and a bad thing, right? I'm not. I don't get to experience the blessings of a family in that way. But then, that there's also benefits for me in not being subjected to certain things. Yeah, Razvan using the Tom Tom. Yeah, I like this app called Smart Truck Route 2. It's now the thing is I've used it so much that it's got some idiosyncrasies that I'm used to. As long as the driver knows how to avoid the potential pitfalls, it's great. Some of that is, always double check the route, right? I can't ever just take its word for what's going on. But generally speaking, it's right on the money. Uh, oh, and I wanted to say earlier, because I think some people kind of make fun of me, whether on the street, maybe not out loud, but they kind of wonder why I like these little cars. Here's part of the reason I like a little Nissan Versa, and I've always liked little cars. I got out here, listen to this, for $115 in gas. Now, part of that was just driving 60 miles an hour, when I was able to, and I was able to get out of Cali relatively quickly. I think I only bought, well, I still spent like $25 in Cali, so that was, you know, $4.30 a gallon, right? And then as soon as I got out of Cali, it was in the twos. I don't think I paid over $2.99 after that, after I got out of Cali. But yeah, I got out here for $115, which is also part of the reason why I left when I did. And I do want to get into the notes, because why would I choose to leave? Um, when I did have a comfortable routine. Well, part of that was car insurance is up next month. My car is insured through April the 12th, I think. And I'm hoping, although this may not happen, I may have to pay for 1 month. But hopefully, if everything fell right, I could maybe pay for another year of car insurance potentially. I do like that. I enjoy, now that we're in the and I've talked about this before on the live stream. Folks may not be aware. In the old days, I would always just get Geico or and this is why, like, State Farm will not insure me. A legit or an actual company won't insure me anymore, because in the old days I would always just get Geico or Progressive, and I would just pay them whatever they wanted for the down payment in the first month to get the proof of insurance, the 6 months or whatever proof of insurance, and then I just wouldn't pay, until it was time to get proof of insurance again. And they know it's a game. Well, now with the license plate scanners and the databases, when I got my Arkansas tags, in the old days, you would go in there with your proof of insurance. Now they still want you to bring the proof of insurance, but they check with the database anyway, right? Um, and the cops have access to this in their cars. So the days of, the underclass, the impoverished folks, having tags, but then driving around with proof of insurance, but without actual valid insurance, that shit's over with. So surprise, surprise, as soon as that became the reality, guess who started actually paying 12 months of car insurance? Me, right? First, I was doing it month to month. And then because they figured out I have a tendency, I technically live in Arkansas, which is inexpensive, but then I have this tendency to just go to like Austin, Texas, or Los Angeles or San Francisco for extended periods of time. That I generally pay about $100 a month for the lowest level of liability possible, right? For the lowest levels of coverage, I'm paying like $90 a month, with a spotless record and a CDL, by the way. Yeah, it saves a little bit, Razvan. They actually charge it's just they tack on like an extra $7 a month if you pay by the month or something. So yeah, it's a savings, and then they want like a down payment. So they jack up the first payment, and then they add like $7 to the next 11 payments. So yeah, definitely it's probably saves a little over 100. Say basically saves one payment. Um, I would say, but it's mainly just knowing I'm good for a whole year and not having to think about it. So, part of being able to sleep in my car in Los Angeles for 9 months or whatever that was knowing I have valid tags and I have car insurance, um, and I don't have to worry about it. I have cell service. I don't have to worry about it, right? Because I paid for a whole year. I had a whole year of YouTube Premium. Um, Now, and I don't really, if I don't have a car, that's not a big deal. I might have been willing to write all of that out, except my Arkansas driver's license expires this year in August. So it's like, well, either I'm going to get a California license, and then, I'm going to have to either go move into a homeless shelter or like a tiny home village or whatever, which they do have several in LA, that are apparently pretty easy to move into, these tiny homes. And then, probably the officials could, like, this is how I got my Texas CDL originally, was, the Salvation Army, they filled out a notarized form that said that I lived there. And then I was, made me a resident of Texas at the time. Resident. So if I was willing to go through the official channels, I'm sure I could have gotten a California driver's license. But, realistically, it just makes more sense to keep going with the, and I think California, I don't think they just transfer over the CDL. I think they want you to jump through some hoops. I'm pretty sure that's the case. And it just makes more sense to keep the Arkansas for now. And then maybe even if I was going to change states, maybe change to a state that does not have a state income tax, perhaps, especially if we're talking about working, right? Arkansas is a relatively high state income tax. So it was like, well, I'm probably going back to Arkansas at some point anyway. Might as well, potentially get the tags renewed, which will also involve, paying my property tax on the car, through the county assessor's office and all of that stuff, which is laughably cheap since I'm from Arkansas. All of these things. Although I do want to get, I'm using a specific address I don't want to get into right now, but I do want to. It's one of the drawbacks of not actually living anywhere. I need to, even if I stay a Arkansas resident, I'm going to have to figure out another address to use. But so yeah, the LA Marathon came around, and I was not aware of this, but I was parked on the fucking route. Right, I was actually where I was parking my car every day, and I wasn't driving. I was just leaving it legally parked on the street. And I found a street that it was enough of a main street that there's no weekly. You don't have to move once a week for the street sweeper. And well, then here come the signs. Early in the week they put up the signs. No parking Sunday midnight to 1 p.m. LA Marathon. So I was going to have to move anyway. And then I was going to wait until I woke up early Sunday morning and roll out and either leave town potentially or go to another parking spot. And then I had not started the car in at least probably 6 weeks. And I got to thinking Saturday, well, I don't know if this car is going to start. And if technically I could have just pushed it at midnight, there would be not enough traffic. I could push it down the street, hang a left, and that's a downhill, and then pop start it, since it's a manual. But I really prefer not to do that. That's really more of a case of course of last resort. I've done it quite a few times when when I was trying to avoid replacing my battery a while back. And probably a little rough on the starter, I'm assuming, and the alternator. It's rough on the alternator, but so about 11 on Saturday, I was like, I need to see if this car starts, and it was close, but it did not start. And it's not like it almost started, but you could tell it had not been out of juice for too many days, but maybe like a week before it would have started probably. So I made a sign, right? I made a sign that said, need jump start. So I found some cardboard, and, here's how I'm a legit, a bona fide homeless person. I always have a nice quality large magic marker at all times. So I made me a black magic marker. I made a sign, need jump start. Then I figured out the equivalent in Spanish and wrote that below it. I forget what that was, but stood next to my car, and in about 20 minutes, somebody at the light was like, hey, I'm going the other way, was like, hey, you need to jump? Yeah, man. And busted a Yui and had one of those jump boxes, jumped me off, and said, praise God, and was down the road. Now he looked like a Spanish speaker, but he also looked like probably spoke both, grew up speaking both languages, most likely. But yeah, friendly folks in the city, believe it or not. Although most people were just, completely ignored or be like, think it's a scam or whatever. But and it kind of seemed like he might have had a couple of drinks, but who cares? I'm not worried about that. But yeah. So once the car was running, I was like, well, am I really, what am I going to do? Now I need to drive it around to charge the battery. And I'd also been thinking to myself, I rolled into town 7 months ago or whatever with this same gas. And I'm thinking, like, I don't know how long this gas is going to be good. Realistically, I need to run this gas out. Now, if I'm looking at filling up the gas tank, that's going to cut into my cash, right? Now it's like, and I'm looking at the budget. I'm like, well, I have enough money to drive to Dallas, and Dallas is a good area for truck driving jobs. And I'd been looking on Craigslist. And then a lot of the companies that would also hire me were in Chicago. Now, a lot of those are these Russian mafia companies, but the main thing is just knowing to avoid picking a company that will expect me to run outside of the hours of service, the federally mandated hours of service, which I'm just not willing to do. I'm just not going to do that. And they can kiss my ass. But the thing about the Chicago companies is they don't have places to park your car. They fly the driver in, assign him or her a truck, and then the driver just takes the truck home on their home time, right? There's no like terminal, you know. So I was actually like, well, Dallas would be better because most likely I'm going to have access to park my fucking car, right? And then I might possibly, if this ends up working out, again, it's fraught with peril. It's truck driving. Any number of things could happen to keep this, from happening. But assuming I end up, working 6 weeks or long enough to actually take some home time, uh, I'll probably rent another UPS box so that I can order off of Amazon, because Amazon's just getting worse and worse. Now they've started. I don't know if they're doing this to everybody or if they're just doing it to me, but there's a lot of like food items and grocery type items. Even some of my tea, like my chicory root and my pounded chicory root, my ginseng, they just will not ship it to an Amazon locker anymore. And I think they figured, and my chocolates that I've been addicted to, they won't ship those to the Amazon locker anymore. It's fucking bullshit. And then just from past experience, you know, trying to be in the right place at the right time, and then having to order ahead of time and all of these things to actually be in the right place at the right time on the road to get the items at the Amazon locker. It really is just, it's too much stress. It's too much hassle. So I probably need to just bite the bullet and get another UPS store box and use that for Amazon, assuming I end up back to work, which is certainly not the. Yeah, that's right. I might have dropped a few octanes. Yeah, we went from 122 horsepower to down to about 100, probably, right? Biggest scam in the U.S. right up there with income tax, says Bad Barney. Oh yeah, U.S. Everything's a scam. This is scam nation. I talk about everything in America as a business, and it's also, this is scam nation. It's just scam upon scam upon scam upon scam. I mean, it really is. Yeah, insurance is on everything. Insurance on everything is insane. Like this, LolCal Live is doing this fat camp, and I think maybe they rented like a big facility with like acres of land and a gym and a like a pond and all of this. And the chat was, and I haven't been watching it, but I was watching one of the clips, and the chat was saying like, this place doesn't look like it's worth between 50,000 and 75,000. Apparently, that's what it was estimated to rent this place for a week. But anybody that understands America, I immediately thought, oh no, that's insurance. That's all. It's liability. It's not that the facility is worth 75. It's not that the facility is worth 10 grand a day. It's that the only way that that property can be rented out to the public is to have expensive motherfucking insurance. That's the only way it's possible, right? Uh, so that's just what it is. Yeah, scammed up incarceration nation. That's right. That's right. Well, and that's the thing about bad gas, Razvan. In the old days, like the gas would just go bad, and if a car sat in somebody's yard long enough, and then they would have to drop the tank and maybe replace some of the fuel lines, clean out the fuel injectors or whatever. I mean, that's what they would. It's probably because they tried to start it. I don't fucking know. I'm not a mechanic. I know the basics, but I didn't know. I was like, fuck it. It's probably better to just burn this gas off than not, right? So all of that coalesced with me rolling out of town last Saturday. What is today, by the way? It's Friday, right? So it's been almost a week. Well, and Rick says Craigslist is not the best place to find a job. What I would say, Rick, is it depends upon one's criteria, right? What are the criteria for the job? Because remember, I need somebody to hire a person that they don't know who has a spotty work history, so spotty that I haven't driven a truck in a year. And I don't know if you know this, a lot of companies would not even consider me to be a truck driver anymore. Like a lot of companies would say you got to go through training again, such as like Snyder. My first company, I'm pretty sure if I tried to go work for them and I hadn't driven a truck in a year, they would say, well, you got to go through our training again. Right. So again, Craigslist is a great place to find a job depending on one's criteria. But I agree with you. And now I think, Rick, we're back to the American notion of, like, I'm a valuable worker. I'm the best of the best. I bring a lot to the table, which by the way, to me, it sounds like wouldn't those be the type of people who'd want to join a union, by the way, but somehow now union's a bad word. And that's the last thing anybody would do was unionize. Right. But it's like, collective bargaining, organizing labor and all of these things sounds very leftist, doesn't it? But workers' rights and all of this stuff. But the fact is, I'm not the best of the best until I work there for 2 to 3 months. But then I'm also not the best of the best because historically, on paper, once I've worked there 2 to 3 months and they see what I'm producing at the level of my stats, my on time percentage, I'm not crashing into stuff, right? Now, if I'm not that economic on the fuel, I stop way too much, but a lot of these companies don't give a fuck about that. I don't take home time really. I'm not a pain in the ass, but I'm rough on the dispatchers historically. I'm cranky. I give them a piece of my mind. I read them the riot act, right? Um, Occasionally I fire the dispatcher, not from the company, but I fire them. I say, you're fired. I'm not working with you anymore. You fucking bozo. And I'd like to think I've turned over a new leaf, and I think that is going to tie into some of my leveling up, cheer the level up, and I probably do need to be tested, but I believe, I have overcome some of my previous crankiness, although we won't really know until I've been on the road, for a period of time. But hopefully I won't be quite so rough on the dispatchers as I have been in the past. But yeah, anyway, there's all of that. So Craigslist is a great way for me to find companies that will hire anybody who meets their criteria, even if that person hasn't worked for an entire year. Yeah. Well, and I can't even go there on the politics right now, Razvan. But remember drunk Provo. I'm assuming that's JG. If you're JG, I drove out here past several freight trains, and shout out to a donation, by the way. Thank you very much. You know who you are. Much appreciated. Um, and I got something to say about a recent donation that I will keep anonymous, but I'll get into that here in a minute. Um, yeah, I drove past some freight trains and I said, man, I would love to just look over there and just happen to see JG's head pop up, on that freight train. That'd be cool as fuck. Oh, really? Razvan says his new company has been so nice and helpful. Dispatchers are unreal. Yeah, I mean, and I'll cop to it. In the past, I was just an asshole. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. I just I was an asshole. I mean, I'm the type with the neurodivergence and the undiagnosed fake autism. I always had a reason. I waited till I had a legitimate reason, then I let the asshole out. I unleashed the asshole. It's just not appropriate, ultimately. Although with this last company, I rarely beat up on the dispatchers on the phone. I would do it. I got into a big back and forth with the fleet manager over email, and I guess he was feeling froggy. I'm the last person one would want to try to engage in a series of email debates with, but it was a Pyrrhic victory, right? It's like, oh, I didn't win anything, But my poor 30-year-old dispatcher, if he stays in the industry, I think he'll look back and realize he made several key errors with me, but that's all right. Makes up for the shitty jobs they have around London. Yeah, there you go. And I'm pretty sure this is a shitty job, by the way, folks. And if that sample does come back diluted, I'll probably just take it as a sign from up above to, go do something else with my time, right? Which, what was I considering doing with my time? Because I will say this: when I first rolled into town, I was a little down in the dumps. I was a little depressed, right? I'll admit to it. That not a lot of fear, but just the uncertainty around, what am I going to do? A bit of a cultural shock after 9 months in LA. I rolled into the Deming, New Mexico Supercenter parking lot at the end of a day of driving in my car. And, after spending, probably, I don't know, 7 months on foot in Echo Park, Los Angeles, the beautiful people and all of this. And, um, even the fat people running around jogging and exercising, and for the most part, and just the juxtaposition of the types of vehicles, these nightmare gigantic pickup trucks, these death machines, not that they're going to kill the driver. I mean, they look like they're designed to kill people who are foolish enough to try to walk across a Walmart parking lot, such as yours truly, just walking around the super center, uh, getting, whatever little bit of things I needed to get, checking out the eggs. Is like that was the first time I went into a store outside of California to see, well, what are the egg prices? What's the availability, And just the people, man, the speed at which they move, having to go back to now I need to slow down my physical movements to the speed of their brains, right? Like, you know, a lot of us do romanticize, the middle part of the country versus the coast, but is the middle part of the country superior to the coast? Yeah, in some ways. In other ways, vastly inferior. And just these are not the best and the brightest when you want to talk about, what's going on between and by the way, what's going on in their brains. And by the way, I don't think the city folk really, they're brainwashed, they're indoctrinated, they have ridiculous beliefs, they're mind controlled. It's that, they're not in my way all the time. They're not, you know what I mean? Like they're actually, moving around and trying to get some shit done. They're not, 300 pounds, waddling side to side, taking up the entire aisle of the Walmart, such that I'm just like, how do I even, and part of that is my fault for going in there, at the busiest time of day, right? But part of that was I was going to hit the road early in the morning and they weren't going to be open because they're not open 24 hours anymore. More collusion from the big corporations, by the way. You know, COVID gave them an excuse for, no longer being open 24 hours. And then competition is a sin. So this is how we don't have actual capitalism, because under actual capitalism, once the pandemic ended, well, Walmart would say, okay, we need an advantage over Target. Let's start staying open all night again. And or Target would say, well, shit, we need an advantage over Walmart. Let's stay open 24 hours again. And then they would all just be open 24 hours again, except they're all colluding and working together. And they're just, Walmart announced it. They said, we don't ever plan on being 24 hours ever again. Right. Is Provo gone, never to return? I don't know. I've pretty much turned off notifications for all the panel channels, so I do enjoy Provo's content, but I don't. I've stopped watching, I must say, so I don't know what's going on over there. Yeah, and God bless them. Like I don't. And here's another thing. I think part of me really does, you know, consider myself superior to these type of people I'm describing, but then being raised up by Jehovah's Witness parents and being mind controlled by a cult, and being formally trained in public speaking and how to talk to strangers about religion, you know, I am a man of the people on that level, right? Like I don't put myself above them, but I think that's learned. I think I was taught that versus I think my personality and my spirit is fuck these slow-minded, dim-witted, obese bozos, right? Like that's probably what I'm feeling inside, but that's not my. And then I've again cheer the level up. That's just neither here nor there. That's just sort of you know below the surface, not really being paid attention to. But it's more of the contrast, right, between oh my god, the differences between the LA scene and then what's going on in this tiny town in New Mexico, which, by the way, in my experience, the dumbest motherfuckers in the country are in New Mexico. It's appalling. And I'm from Arkansas. It's appalling how stupid people in New Mexico, and I mean on paper, like let's have a spelling contest, stupid. Like that just dumb. It's fucking shocking, especially if you follow true crime like I do and watch a lot of police body cams. And dude, when the New Mexico police arrive on scene and have to figure out what's going on, those motherfuckers are lost. The only thing they really know how to do is DUIs. They're really good at DUIs. That's about it. Clovis, New Mexico sucks balls. Yeah, I don't know that I've experienced Clovis firsthand, but I've heard the name. I've probably seen the signs. I don't. Is that on the interstate? I don't know. You know me. I'm not a train rider, so I'm more familiar with the interstates. Sadly. What's up, Robert? Thank you, sir. Hit the like. Hit the like indeed. Well, so then I got to Weatherford, Texas, and now it's like the opposite of LA, right? In that, and what do I mean by that? Well, LA it's not. I don't consider LA to be. There are parts of LA that are not particularly trashy, but just big cities come with a certain amount of dirt and grime and trash and refuse and grime. But then now, like Weatherford, Texas, which is like on the west, it's not in Dallas Fort Worth. Like it's on the outskirts, right? It's outside of Dallas Fort Worth. So if I get on the interstate and go east, I'm in you end up in Fort Worth in like 30 miles, right? But you're not in Dallas Fort Worth, really. I'm sure it's considered it's statistically probably part of the metro, but so this is the folks who don't want to live in the big city, right? But probably just for jobs. So this is more of the small town type of folks, but it is Texas, so everything's bigger in Texas, even the small towns, right? And feces, that's right, Razvan. Although I will say this, I don't care where you go in the U.S. There's some human feces somewhere. You're not going to necessarily find it in the Weatherford Supercenter parking lot, but I don't know. Since I slept in my car, you might, if you wander into the patch of woods nearby, you might find a log out there. I don't know. I can't call it, but it's possible. That's all I'll say about that. But just like everything's clean, right? Uh, you know, like it's always a bit eerie when there's a Walmart with no trash cans in the parking lot. Most Walmarts next to the cart corrals, you know how Walmart parking lots have all these cart corrals for the shopping carts. Usually there's a trash can next to those. Not out here, not in this part of Texas. And that's always a bad sign because they're like, we don't even want to attract the type of people who even will bring trash onto our parking lot, right? Like this is an entirely psychologically, this is quite an interesting thing. And which I like cleanliness too, but then I like to walk. So now here I am, car parked in the parking lot. Now I'm like, all right, I'm going to just walk down the street and see what's around here. By the way, now we're into what one of my least favorite things: suburban sprawl. SPRAWL. Now we're in sprawl territory, right? And just big box stores, gas stations, Sonic drive-in, other fast food, Aldi, which I like Aldi. Aldi's fun, grocery store, oil change places. It's all corporatized. Everything's sanitized. It's sort of this just. It's just I despise it. Give me fucking rundown areas of LA any day of the week, or San Francisco, or yeah, I'll dodge some poop on the sidewalk here and there, versus just overly sanitized corporate fucking hellscape. And again, we're picking our poison. Los Angeles isn't better; it's a preference, right? For some people, they love it. Like the people who live here, I'm sure they love it, right? They love the chaos of driving their $100,000 Denali GMC Denali SUV. Again, death machine. To me, it just looks like a death machine. And driving that around the Walmart parking lot, and my head's got to be on a swivel, because it's not like they're going to see me. I got to get out of their way, right? And just all day long driving around this suburban sprawl hellscape, which is almost unwalkable, by the way. Where I was in Los Angeles, if you guys have ever seen this, there's a website, walk, I don't know what the site's called, but it's a walk score, and it's a rating out of 100. Where I was in LA was a 96, which effectively means whatever your heart desires is within walking distance, or you can walk to the public transit and get there, right? But it means mostly anything you need, you can walk there on your own 2 feet. I love that. I prefer to walk. I love, now I do enjoy driving, right? But that's more of a long distance thing. Yeah, I don't want to get in my car and drive to the store. I would much rather walk. I'm in Texas, Robert. I left you. Yep. Rewind in the stream if you want to hear I think I went through most of my reasons earlier. I got my reasons, but I suspect I'll be back at some point in the future. Now, the main thing I'm enjoying, Robert, is that beyond the cheaper eggs, the greater availability of eggs, right? The greater availability of eggs. Now, part of that is that California, that by law they can't mistreat the chickens, but I'm still able to get cage-free eggs on the shelf. They're not sold out. I am just west of Fort Worth, Texas, Bad Barney, which is probably the more. In my day, we used to call this anal retentive, the type of people who sort of want everything kind of sanitized. They don't like germs. They just kind of want everything a particular way, right? But in a down home country type of way, right? Not in an unsophisticated folks who are, but they are attracted to their local Walmart supercenter not having trash cans, that type of thing. Oh, okay, that's right. Yeah, I forget Bad Barney's in Texas. And yeah, I'm just riding out the weekend, and then once my drug test results come back, as long as I did not accidentally dilute my sample, I'll be going to my orientation for my new job on Monday. Congratulations to me. Here's your prize, sir. One of the least desirable jobs possible. Right. Yeah, the Wild West. This is like, yeah, Fort Worth is like the edge of what would be considered like the West, I would say. It's sort of one of the gateways. I think Oklahoma City kind of considers themselves some version of that, but Yeah, Fort Worth historically, big cattle town, I believe, historically also. Um, but yeah, definitely sort of the start of the West. To me, it's more, you know, I don't know. It doesn't even matter what I think on that. Well, and that, but that's and see, this is, but see, congratulations really are not in order because this company literally hires anybody sight unseen who is able to prove that they have a clean record, a clean license, a medical card, and a pulse, right? Because I haven't worked in an entire year, Robert, and a lot of companies would not hire me just based on that. A lot of companies would say, "Well, what have you been doing?" They'd want to know what have you been doing for a year, right? Which is in my case is unexplainable. I like Fort Worth, man. Downtown's nice, dude. Um, as a person who likes downtowns, I like downtown Fort Worth. It's way better than downtown Dallas. Downtown Dallas, I'm not a fan. I actually like Dallas in general, but not a fan of downtown whatsoever. Yeah, and they don't play in Fort Worth. There's homeless people. There's actually way more homeless people than you might expect in Fort Worth, but they don't take no shit off of no homeless. I can tell you that right now. They do not allow the homeless to run amok. The homeless are not allowed to fucking lie in a pile of their own filth. Absolutely not. They crack the motherfucking. Which by the way, I'm for that. I'm like, yeah, don't let them lie in a pile of their own filth. It's better for them to not let them lie in a pile of their own filth all day. That's obvious, right? But I'm also on the side of, they're people. We need to treat them humanely. Like, the fact that they don't have a home to live in, that sucks, right? Uh, all of these type of things, the more, compassionate. But yeah, I've never thought it was a good idea to just let people live in their own filth and run around, creating a bunch of foolishness and mischief. But yeah, Fort Worth, strict but fair, I would say. Strict but fair. And I've never been there as a homeless person, but I do like downtown Fort Worth. That's right, Razvan. Nobody wants to sleep in trucks they can't afford to be too fussy. And that's another thing. See, that's when I was saying in some ways, I'm the industry's wet dream. I like living in like, it's a perk of the job. I would never do that job if I was not able to live in my workplace. Like, that's a big key point of the job is no commute time. I wake up and I'm already at my job, right? I park at the truck stop at the end of the day. I'm done for the day. There's no more. It's just, hopefully I got my groceries during my shift, and hopefully I have all my supplies. Most of the time, I don't even go into the truck stop unless it's one of those rare shower times, which I will be taking a shower this weekend. And because, I do want to show up presentable for the first day on the job. Oh, you're in Pecos? Wow. That's interesting. I went right through there, Barney. Did not know. I actually kind of like Pecos for what it is. Um, I think that's where my grocery store is that I like because I believe y'all got some truck stops in Pecos, and there's a pretty decent. If I'm thinking of the right town, there's a pretty decent grocery store there. It's expensive, but they got a good selection. Bunch of billionaires in Fort Worth, yeah, probably so. And there's actually a lot of cool architecture, like Gothic churches, and there's a lot of cool looking buildings. I like to walk around and look at buildings. Yeah, a lot of cool architecture. It's like a low key underrated architecture city, actually, Fort Worth. But so something about the shower, I was thinking last night, about this whole thing with my sample being diluted and all of this, and I really, need to not blow a bunch of money this weekend just in case, even if they retest me, that'll take several days. That'll delay my starting of my job for several days, and I need to manage my money properly. And then I'm thinking, well, at some point I need to get over to the truck stop. Now I do have the option of bothering the truck drivers and saying, "Hey, man, could you hook me up with a shower off your card?" But realistically, it would just be better to have my own money and pay for it. And this is where I know that, back to the start of the stream when I was reading Psalm 23 out loud, and I've talked about, my being guided and protected spiritually, and I've done enough preaching and talking about higher powers and things. But so as I'm thinking about this, and like I really need to go take a shower, and thinking about it's generally around, it's about $18 nowadays because there's a Petro nearby. I don't want to dox my location too hard, but there's enough super centers around here. It's not like anybody's going to come looking for me, but it is the internet. Who knows? But either way, um, I'm not too worried about it. Full send, by the way. Uh, can't be living in fear. Fully committed to my path here. But so as I'm thinking about this, like and I want to be presentable for the first day, and I haven't showered in so long now. I'm not stinky, but like my skin has gotten so flaky. White people get ashy too. Like so much of my skin's flaking off. It's like, look, at this point I have to take a shower. So as I'm thinking about this, and thinking, well, I really don't necessarily want to do this until I at least know that I passed this drug test, and without the diluted sample. So then I'm thinking maybe I'll just wait till Monday, and do it on the way to orientation. I hear my phone ding, and out of nowhere, $40 dono. Out of fucking nowhere. Can you believe that? It's like, so it's almost, to me, it's like a reinforcement that I'm on the correct path. I am being Psalm 23 out here, even though I am walking through the valley of the shadow of death, my cup runneth over, Jack. $40. And if the person, if the donator hears this, uh, you're right on time. Uh, and I'm intentionally not preaching to the audience right now because they have tolerated, although sometimes they need to hear it, but I'm picking my spots a little better these days. But I really need to make the whole stream about preaching, and then people can just not listen to it, or I need to minimize it realistically. So, but yeah, it was amazing just to be thinking about that, and then as I'm thinking about it and sort of doing the budget in my head, and sort of planning the logistics, I hear the phone ding, and it's like, here's $40. Yeah. So if anybody wants to hit the Cash App or the Venmo, please do, by the way. But I got enough to get me through, and again, I'm provided for either way. So if anybody feels compelled to join in on the uh, being cared for in this hell realm as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, uh, you're more than welcome to. If not, uh, you probably need it as much as I do. And as we know, folks just don't really have extra money, right? Um, and that was already the case, but then it seems since the new administration, people got even less money. It seems like funny how that works out, but not that it would be expected to operate any other way, right? I'm just looking at my notes. I want to hit everything. I think I've hit all of the. I think I've hit all of the topics on my list. Oh wow. Yeah, it's weird how Bad Barney says he's been fighting with Cash App for a full week. They say my address is not legit. Like I don't know my own address. Well, and that's, you've been assimilated. That's the whole thing of this is, you have been assimilated by the Borg. The fact that you know where you live and you know what your address is, that means nothing to the Borg. The Borg is going by, whatever the zip plus four or whatever that is, zip plus four address is in their computer system. And, you will comply, you will adhere to that. And if your address, does not conform to the standards of the Borg, then no Cash App for you, partner. Yeah, exactly. Robert Escobar, exactly. Um, Robert Escobar does taxes for people during tax time. He says his last three customers had combined incomes over 150K, which remember, folks, especially Southern California, but really everywhere is expensive now. Everywhere is expensive. That's not even that much money anymore, but that's a comfortable living if people know how to manage their money. I mean, I think we can agree on that. It's comfortable living. But they did not have the $250 to file their taxes because they owed money. Yeah, because I'm assuming, and I don't file. I probably shouldn't say that into Alphabet, Google, YouTube's help it, but either way, for better or for worse, I'm sure the system understands that by now that I'm not going to be filing a tax return anytime soon. But exactly, yeah, and won't take a PO box. That's right. That's right, Bad Barney. But um, if a person's getting a refund, then when they go to get their taxes did by Robert Escobar he's able to take his fee out of the refund, right? But not if the people owe money at the end of the year. Now they need to pay his fee, right? So what happens? Did you do the work for nothing, or I'm sure you have some kind of way to get your money out of them, I would hope. Or is it just like, hey, let me know when you get that 250 and I'll be happy to file this for you? Is that how that goes? Which is again fair. That's fair play. It's business. It's business after all. But yeah, that's where we're at. Is and in Arkansas, and I figured this out years ago. People where I'm from would hear that somebody has a household income of $150,000 and think that's rich people. Those are rich people. And I'm like, no, those are not rich people. Absolutely not. They may very well be living paycheck to paycheck as well. Uh, and I remember when I was with my first wife, some of her family, her uncle, her uncle had a married a white lady, an obese white lady, and we were up in there in Northwest Arkansas where there was, it's been a booming area since the 90s. And so this was in the late 90s. We were driving around somewhere in, Rogers or somewhere up there, and north near the Walmart headquarters, somewhat near anyway, Northwest Arkansas, and the obese aunt-in-law, I don't know however that works out, the obese aunt or whoever, we're driving by some houses, and she's like something about that's where the rich folks live. And I'm looking at the house and I'm thinking to myself, my parents live in a house just like that, right? Like, and I assure you, these are not rich folks. This just, by extension, we think that those are, no, absolutely not. Uh, everybody who has to work a job or work in their own business to maintain their present lifestyle is poor. Period. No exception. Rich folks can choose not to operate their business themselves, or they can choose not to work a high paying job that they may enjoy. Maybe the rich person enjoys being a high level executive, or, on the board of directors at whatever organization, or, nonprofit, or whatever they choose to do with their day. Tomorrow they can wake up and say, you know what, I think I'm going to take a year off, and just take a year off, right? Which, by the way, who just took a year off? Mr. Benton. Which is, this gets into the idea of the Tao, and the idea that, you know, the balance between extremes, so that, extreme wealth, that's extreme on one end, and extreme poverty is extreme on the other end. And the Tao would imply that on some level those are the same, they're equivalent, because they're equidistant from the center. So just like the very wealthy can say, fuck it, I'm going to take a whole year off, the people at the very bottom, such as myself, can just say, fuck it, I'm taking a year off, which I basically did. Although, again, I chose to go walk around and pick up cans, and I didn't have to. Like, I could have went and taken advantage of the free, the local community meals, right? I could have stayed in line for the food box. I could have went around town getting whatever, handouts were available, right? It's interesting how that works. But it's this idea of a middle class, which doesn't actually exist, but it's the people in the middle in my view, that suffer the most in a day in, day out toiling, right, with these American notions of, well, we're better because we work hard, right? We work longer, we work harder. Well, but to what end? When banks and corporations own everything, when banks and corporations own the political system, is it really virtuous to go bust one's ass to make a corporation that's already rich to make it richer, to make a bank that's already rich to make it richer? And the fact is, this is the function of the economy, is to make rich people richer every moment into perpetuity, and it never fails to achieve that purpose. Ever. There's never a moment where the system is not making rich people richer, right? And so I see no virtue in working hard to make that mechanism function, to continue to enforce the enrichment of people who are already so rich that 10 generations from now, their kids will never have to work a day in their life if they don't want to, unless their parents just make them, which some do. Yes, some parents do, right? Oh, I don't care. But see, this is where, see, I wanted to avoid this, Robert, but I just don't file. Like, now, the fact is, you know, we're in a climate when, Social Security Administration is more or less being dismantled, while it's continuing to pay out benefits, but as far as I can tell, um, the Department of Education's in the process of being gutted, apparently. Uh, is there going to be an IRS, right? Um, and now I don't think the fact that I haven't filed in over 20 years is a mistake. It's the fact that I'm speaking it into the public internet, into Alphabet, Google's, YouTube's Hell Pit, when absolutely 100% my words are being recorded, not just in this live stream, not just on my channel. I could delete this channel tomorrow and there's still going to be, or today, and there's still going to be a recording of my voice just openly stating that I have not filed and I have no intention to file. Now, I will say this, part of when I'm naming the stream Full Send, and part of me putting my name on it and committing to my path and my goals is, at this point, they could put me in federal prison, and I think that would probably be okay with me. I'm not even kidding. Like, I know I'm not a badass. I know I'm not looking forward to it if it were to happen, but if that's what happens, that's what happens. I mean, that's how bad life has gotten. Well, now you say that about Fed. That's the thing is, yeah, I do live in a state where Arkansas expects me to file. That's the thing. I mean, I think I would be more likely to get in trouble with Arkansas than I would with the federal government, because what people don't realize is you've got tens of millions of Americans who just don't file their income taxes. Period. They just don't file. And, you know, what happened to me was over 20 years ago, uh, I owed on student loans and I just never paid on them. And I took out one student loan for one semester and just blew the money. And it was like $5,000 or something. It might not have even been that much. It might have been like, it was like a Pell Grant or something, mate. I don't know what it was. I don't even remember. It was free money as far as I was concerned. This was right about the time that I took every, that's great. Yeah, that's right, Carl. Yeah, Carl's not in America. He's doing great. As America's happiness rating is now dropped below Mexico's, by the way. Out of the three countries in North America, America is third out of three for happiness. But oh, greatest country. Well, where have y'all been exactly? But anyway, I don't want to get into America bashing right now. Hmm. Perhaps later. Well, I don't think they're going to put me in prison, JG. But I'll say this: at this point, I probably would. err on the side of caution and not publicly declare that I haven't filed and I have no intention to file. At this point, put me in prison. I mean, I don't want them to. I'd prefer not to go to prison, but fuck it. Look, I'm not delusional. I understand that I can't, there's no version of going to federal court and saying, you know, Your Honor, this is an outrage. Most of federal income taxes goes to already rich bankers for interest on the debt, and then like something out of a movie, just the my humanity shines through and they free me or whatever, right? Like I understand that's not going to happen, but the fact is, I don't. Okay, if I go take a W-2 job and my job takes out FICA and sends that to the government, that's fine. I'm still not going to file an income tax return. Now, don't you think that's part of the reason why they take the FICA off the top, by the way? Am I getting more donos? No, I'm not. Um, that's okay though. Shout out to Kyle. Yeah, that's right. Me and Sane will be cellmates. Content for the win. That's right. W content. So uh and if you look at the way employment's designed in America, my employer, if I'm W-2, which I've for 3 weeks I worked for that rain dog company, and it was 1099, meaning there was no taxes taken out. And now I'm just telling on myself, but who even cares? And I'm sure a Doge AI algorithm will fucking vacuum this up at some point, right? Whether I say it or not. But um, surprise, surprise, the system is designed. If I'm working W-2, whether I file or not, they take their money. Now the fact is, probably I'm owed money, you know. And in fact, I've had people over the years say, "Well, shit, you should probably get your act together," and they probably owe you fucking a lot of money. That's fine. I don't. They can keep it. And I never got any of the stimmies during the fake pandemic because it was like, yeah, that only went to people who file an income tax return. I was like, who? I was like, I don't want their fucking money. Fuck them. So my attitude, once I went back into the workforce after not being in the workforce for damn near 10 years, once I got my CDL and started truck driving, and by the way, paid off my student loans because they garnished my wages. But it wasn't. It was it was like 5 grand by the time they tacked on all the interest and everything. But yeah, they seized my. I was supposed to get back like 2 grand one year, and they seized my fucking my refund. So I said, "Fuck it." I just quit filing. And as we know back then, and it's probably now too, isn't that really people's only motivation? If you just work an hourly job like I did, and I even had a salaried job at one point, but if I was making in 1996 or whatever, I was making $20,000 probably, and my only I was in IT and had a salaried position at $33,000 a year. There's your 33 code. $33,000 a year. What's that? $500 a week after? This is nuts. Just peanuts, right? Now, yeah, one was able to live off of that back then, as long as one had a roommate or one cohabitated with his wife, as I did at that time, right? Who also had a job. Who also had a job, but even then, it was like, okay, the system is set up in a very intelligent way. It's like, okay, we need to motivate these bozos or they're not going to file an income tax return. As we know, literally tens of millions of Americans don't file. Now, if that's the threshold, Robert, I may not make 30 grand. It is possible that I don't make 30 G's this year, certainly. I don't think I made 30 G. I know I didn't make 30 G's last year. So but there were years when I was probably supposed to file and didn't. In fact, I know there was, because I actually for many years I did work the whole year round. Now I need to see. I'm hearing doors slam. I need to see if anybody's parked nearby, because I am in a part of the country where admitting to federal crimes might catch a little bit of attention. But the quality of life has gotten so low in this country that it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't want to go to federal prison, but if that's what happens, I guess I'm okay with it, right? Yeah, that's right. Tax exemptions for everybody who hunts down Cybertrucks. What an abomination, man. Those just a, I like cars. I enjoy the looks of cars, and the aesthetics and the artistic achievements, and it's a fucking abomination from a design standpoint. Shout out to Freedom Grower. Good for you. Yeah, JG says doesn't pay taxes, never will. And yeah, so yeah, we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting. So if they decide that I owe, really, the way my research indicates that if they decide that I owe them money, which I'm pretty sure I don't owe them money, right? But if they decide that I owe them money, they will just do the paperwork, right? They will and they do this anyway, by the way. Like they generate all their own W-2s and they generate all their own tax forms, right? And they do that anyway. So if they ever, based on their own record keeping, if they decide that I owe them money, all they're going to do is, you know, notify me that I'm supposed to go to a court, hearing that I probably won't attend, and then they'll just say, okay, he owes this money, and then then they'll just garnish my taxes, and I'll either quit my job or I won't, and then they'll either come get me and take me and charge me with a crime, or they won't, right? Or maybe I don't know if I'm just like, and this is how bad things are in America, by the way. If at that point I'm just working, driving a truck for survival and living in the truck and I'm feeding myself, well, if they garnish half my wages, but I'm still able to live in the truck and eat, at that point I might just say, fuck it, who cares? Right? Just keep working. Right? And maybe they'll just get their taxes that way. And I'm pretty sure I don't owe them anything. I'm speaking hypothetically in the future were I to owe them any money. Right? By the time and this is assuming they don't dismantle the IRS anyway, right? But I do want to, and which I don't think is going to happen in the way we might think. You know, and this is my opinion: is all of these things that are being dismantled, and isn't this just Ron Paul? Isn't this what Ron Paul ran for president on? Was getting rid of the Department of Education? That was his. He ran on. Audit the Fed and get rid of the Department of Education. That's basically was his entire platform, as we remember, right? Now I am being hyperbolic, tongue in cheek. It's a little beyond that, but that was most of what Ron Paul ran on. So now we have a president who's basically he's not auditing the Fed, obviously. Well, actually, Ron Paul wrote a book called "End the Fed," which I've read, by the way. But we all know that's not going to happen, you know. But other than that, um, the current administration seems to be doing some of the things that Ron Paul was calling for. But why is this happening? My opinion of why this is happening, and why is it happening now and not in the first term of the administration? Well, there is that lame duck effect where he's not, you know, as a party man, there would be some pressure to try to get the Republicans back in, right? But ultimately, it's sort of a free pass for the president to do all of these things. And is it even real? We know it's not. It's really, all politicians work for banks and corporations, including all of them. 100% of all politicians work for banks and corporations. Um, yeah, exactly. Yeah, if they get rid of the IRS, they'll probably replace it with something worse. That's right. Well, in my opinion of why all of these cuts are happening, especially with what they're doing to the Social Security Administration, which I found a channel that talks about that. So I've actually learned a lot about SSA, the Social Security Administration. But my opinion of why all these things are being cut is because the bankers realize that America can no longer afford to service its debt and continue to operate the government in the way it's operated up until this point. Because for those who may not know, the interest on the national debt last year, it ended up totaling 1.15 trillion, but it was only estimated before the year started, it was estimated to be like 800 billion. And that was like double what it had been only a couple of years prior. So the actual what it costs to service the national debt has skyrocketed in recent years because of how much, and the national debt was already high, right? When Trump got in the first time, there was already a ton of national debt. When Biden was president, there was already a ton of debt. You know, when Obama became president, there was and each one of these presidents added to the debt. They all add to the debt, right? I think Clinton managed to, like, for 1 year, not add to the debt, technically balance the budget, right? And what we see this year, they've already, in the first 5 months of fiscal year 2025, the federal government has apparently already set a record with how much it's added to the budget deficit, right? It's already apparently hit $1 trillion or whatever. So the bankers, in a, if anybody's ever familiar with Robert Kiyosaki and that Rich Dad Poor Dad book, really I've read that book. In a lot of ways, that's really just telling you what rich people, actual rich people do, which is they always pay themselves first no matter what. These bankers are getting their $1 trillion no matter what happens. Now, the bankers will plan it out in such a way where they'll say, okay, we need to continue to have the American military funded. We need that for our own purposes. So they're not going to cut the military, right, necessarily to pay themselves, but they absolutely will cut things that, Americans sort of have just assumed are always going to be in place. And that seems to be happening, right, to some extent. And there will be a time when, my mom or your mom or, your one of your relatives, Social Security check's not going to show up, right? And then, so this channel I'm following is talking about how, whether or not that's going to be because of, the competent people in the Social Security Administration, they've been offered these buyouts, they've been offered all of these reasons to leave, right? And then the SSA apparently was already understaffed. They've just straight up fired a bunch of people. And part of the reason why these people are leaving is, when a person is bad at their job, they know they're bad at their job. So a person that's bad at their job and they've been there long enough, right? Because the benefit, what they're being offered to leave their parachute, it's based on how long they've been there. So some of these people came to work one day, had an email, or actually these are, let's face it, a lot of these are the work from home crowd. They logged into their email one morning and it said, hey, we're going to give you $20,000 in a lump payment and then whatever else for you to leave now, or you can stick around and we might fire yo ass, right? So a lot of these people, and now there's reports on this channel I follow. There's and it's in probably in my timeline, my post timeline somewhere. But most of y'all won't listen to it because the way the guy comes across is not in a pleasing manner. So most of y'all won't be able to listen to him, I don't think. But great info, I must say, great info. But apparently somebody called because there was a mix-up. They didn't receive their payment, and whoever they ended up talking to on the phone just started crying and was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. They sent me this email that said if I don't take this $20,000, they might fire my ass. But again, they know if they were good at their job, they wouldn't be worried about it. They would just be like, okay, do I want to take 20 grand? Do I think 20 grand's enough for me to live long, for me to combine with my savings to be able to find another job? And for most folks, the answer to that's going to be no, right? Realistically, why are they being offered these payouts? It's because, now the ones that have been there, that have made a career out of it, that are already, been there 25 years or whatever, now they have actual retirement. So they're like, okay, they're just adding to what my retirement's going to be anyway. So I'll just basically, and that it's going to be like an early retirement. So as the people who actually know how to do the job are no longer there, they're being replaced either not at all or by people who are not competent. So when your mom's or my mom's Social Security check doesn't show up, it's going to be because of some kind of error that happened, right? And now it's going to come down to what is the level of skill of my mom to be able to navigate the bureaucracy of the SSA, right? What's going to be her ability to hire an attorney, right? Somebody like this guy who runs this channel, or, maybe I would say, okay, mom, I'll pay the $100 for you to talk to this guy for an hour, and he'll just give you advice on what to do. Because they say right now the wait times to call in on the phone is already up to 2 hours right now, right? Well, that's a great question. Remember Drunk Provo, who asked a specific question, and the answer is mind control. And I'm not even going to read the question aloud, but it's on the screen. Because Americans are under mind control. It's the same reason that Americans are able to simultaneously believe that this is the greatest country in the history of the realm or the planet, that this is the greatest nation in all of human history, while also facing the cognitive dissonance, while also moving through the cognitive dissonance of coming in dead last, third out of third in happiness from the three countries in North America, behind Canada and Mexico, right? Like, think about that. This is fucking crazy. Now, I will push back a little bit. All systems of government, all systems of man are corrupt, including, I think it's Finland or Norway is ranked number one. It's all those, you know, uh, it's all those Scandinavian countries or whatever that are, highly rated. But I'm sure they have corruption, but they have the lowest levels of corruption, right? Because it is a sliding scale. I'm not expecting no corruption. I'm just would like less corruption. You know, I mean, this thing's so corrupt and incompetent at this point. I'm not even sure they could get their shit together enough to put me in prison if I decided to evade taxes, which, as far as I know, I haven't. And Caleb Hammer can fearmonger till he's blue in the face about the idea that the federal government puts people in prison for not filing a tax return. No, it doesn't. There's nobody that works a fucking hourly job who doesn't have inheritances, who doesn't have a trust fund, who doesn't have access to other forms of income that goes to federal prison for not paying, for not filing an income tax return. That's fucking bullshit. I won't believe it until I see it. I don't think you can find a single person that's just worked an hourly job, had FICA taken away, by the way, and just chooses not to file an income tax return and has then been prosecuted and incarcerated. I don't believe it, right? I don't believe that's a thing. Now, I've seen Caleb Hammer imply to people that, oh, well, the government sends 20,000 people a year to prison for not filing. Yeah, I'm sure they do. And I'm sure if we look into 20,000 different people's books, I'm sure we'll see that, oh, well, look, here's where they inherited $150,000. Here's where somebody set a trust fund up for them where they get every quarter they get a $5,000 disbursement or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Like, yeah, they have to file a return or they're going to get prosecuted. Absolutely. I don't have none of that. I've only ever worked regular motherfucking jobs. I just don't believe that the government is going to, even if it wanted to, I don't believe it's competent enough. And by the way, what's that going to cost me? Shout out to the donations. Thank you very much. Made my day. My day was made yesterday when I got a donation out of nowhere, just thinking about going and taking a shower and what that was going to cost me. Shout out to again, we're keeping them anonymous mainly because I'm retarded. I'm a super high functioning retard. I have trouble. Sometimes I don't. When I see the Cash App name, I don't even know who that is based on the chat name. Uh, Please bear with my retardation. I promise you, I'm not putting this on, but you know who you are. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know how is my profuse thanks, and it means the world. And if I do manage to get back to gainful employment, as brief a period of time as that may or may not be, um, not only am I going to pay it forward and donate to other folks, uh, once I've taken care of my, there are things I need to pay for first, of course, but as soon as I'm able to, some of which does include giving a homeless person flying a sign $20 here and there. There's none of that going on in this part of Texas, I can assure you. There's absolutely no. There's nobody on a corner with a sign. So that's not an option. Although I could go up to people in the Walmart parking lot and interrupt their day and ask them for money, but I don't like to bother people. I'm not too proud to beg. I mean, if I actually need the money, at times I've asked people for money, but I really fucking needed it. And even then, it's been very limited, and I hate to do that. But, you know, the fact is, if the local cops won't let me stand on the corner with a sign, if I have to have the money, then they're sort of now they're sort of creating a situation where now I'm, bothering people at the gas pump or whatever. But I haven't had to do that in quite some time, thankfully. So shout out to the donator. You know who you are. Very generous. I appreciate your generosity. Um, I lack the words to properly express what I'm feeling right now. Um, that is part of the undiagnosed fake autism. Not always that in touch with what I'm feeling in the moment, but it's something. It's something. So my gratitude to you. Thank you. Yeah, and Barney, I'm not going to get into the specifics of. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, uh, a misdemeanor to not file, but I'll go ahead and I'll come at it from another angle. People are curious sometimes. Why do Indians own so many of these gas stations and hotels? Part of this is so my dad. For those who may not know, my dad. Our family business was a gas station, a very profitable convenience store that paid, for our what I believe to be affluent lifestyle, but we were actually impoverished the whole time. I'm from the poorest part of the country. In fact, my home county, I read my local newspaper one morning in the 90s and the mid 90s, it told me that my home county of Jefferson County, Arkansas was the most economically depressed county in the nation at a certain point. So, the idea that the fact that I believed that I came from affluence is no, we were poor. We just temporarily had access to more money than the other poor folks. That's really realistically, that's all that was. I lived in a nice custom home on 5 acres. My dad drove, nice European luxury automobiles because that's what he was into, right? I had my parents didn't believe in giving us, the clothes that we wanted, but we always had nice clothes. We had nice new clothes, not hand me downs, nice new shoes, but not the ones I would have picked out, right? It was what my parents chose to buy me. We always had food on the table, right? Um, but it wasn't like, hey, we go to the store and I'm like, hey, buy me this, buy me that. There was none of that, I can assure you. Um, but why I mention these Indian people is so my dad always paid the sales tax in his business. He whatever he sold in a given month, he remitted 100% to the county and the city. Well, I know from having a close friend who's a Patel in college, who I then worked for him after he bought a convenience store. The Indians culturally, part of them being able to run some of those businesses is they underreport the taxes. And it's based on the idea that he explained this to me. Because again, super high functioning retarded person, I'm not able to figure out some of these things. He explained it to me. He said, what we're counting on is that the local city and county and state governments have limited abilities to figure out if the law's been broken. And then even if they come after us, probably we'll just have to pay a penalty and probably we won't really get in trouble. But it's sort of incentivizing the business to underreport because the chances of getting away with it. And I'm viewing, and again, I don't owe them any money, but I'm just saying I never wanted to file my taxes anyway. I only ever filed a return, not out of a duty, but because they gave me a reward. They said, here's your $2,000, right? Here's your reward for doing what we asked of you. As soon as I filed and they said, well, guess what? We kept your 1,500 because you owe the federal government for a student loan. I said, fuck you, and never filed again. Right. But here's what I'm betting on the misdemeanor is There's no meat on the bone. You can't get blood out of a turnip. What are they can come seize the Versa, and what is this thing going to bring at auction? $750? You know, if that, like, there's nothing to get. And it's going to cost them money to send me to federal prison, right? Because I'm not necessarily just going to plead guilty or take the plea bargain. Now they're going to say, hey, uh, you know, here's your court appointed attorney, and he's going to say, hey, Mr. Benton, in case you're not aware, the federal government has like a 97% conviction rate. I'm going to say, oh, yeah, I know that. And I say, in fact, I knew that the entire time I've been managing my affairs. And I understand that uh, we're about to have a trial, and they're probably going to convict me. And they very well may send me to federal prison. And by the way, you're fired, because if there's going to be a trial, whoever they've appointed is not who they're going to appoint for the trial. So as soon as his job's over with, he's fired, right? Because I understand how the system works to some extent, you know. Uh, but yeah, I think I covered that. That's pretty much everything I wanted to cover about Bad Barney's chats. Without, I don't want to get too much into the specifics of the tax code and everything. Um, it's more for me. It's just more of a realizing that I'm just Joe six pack schmuck. I've never owned anything in my life. Like, I had a mortgage I never had a mortgage. In fact, I had ruined my credit by then, and it was all in ex-wife number one's name, right? Uh, you know, I think they were able to factor my income in, but I wasn't even on the loan, you know, um, hilariously. But, you know, I've never really ever owned anything. I've never been a property owner, or, you know, I've never had an inheritance. I'm never going to have an inheritance. I've never had a trust fund, you know, and I'm happy that people get these things, but that's never been in my path for whatever reason. So, uh, you know, I just don't believe that, as a person who's only ever, other than one job, I've only ever worked hourly. I just don't believe that they're going to do anything to me for not. But by the way, you know, where's my stimulus money? You know, where is whatever money I would have gotten from all those years I worked, you know, 52 weeks a year and never took a vacation, right? You know, where is all the money I paid in? So there's nothing in it for them to come after me, right? Just like with the Indians underreporting the tax money. You know, the city and the county and the state is actually expecting the business owner to do the calculations and pay the money. So I guess the city, the county, and the state is okay with the amount of money that they're being sent, right? So there you go. I guess the feds are happy with whatever they've managed to steal from my wages, because taxation is theft, by the way. My labor is supposed to be my property, motherfucker. It's supposed to be. Don't I own myself? Do I own myself, or do I not own myself? If I own myself, isn't my labor my property? I know I make fun of the MAGAs because a lot of y'all don't seem to understand. That's fucking that's right out of Marx. All this, my labor is my property, and this is all Marxism. You know, it's at least Marxist coded language. You know, the fact that that flies over, you know, much of the audience's head is somewhat shocking and appalling to me, right? You know, how is one going to defeat an enemy that one does not even understand? You know, that's my view of it. You know, not understanding the commies, but and it is communism. That's what. And you know, I listen to some of these. I listen to a little bit of this dating content, the manosphere bullshit. Just, I find some of it amusing. You know, not to woman bash, but just out of a more of a I feel bad for these ladies and what they're going through. But you know, the male of the species likes to perpetuate this notion where the women are to blame, right? I'm like, no, absolutely not. It's the fact that men have not set boundaries and have permitted women to fall to to fall to these lows. I don't blame women for that. Because why don't I blame women for that? And again, I'm not here. I hope this is not misinterpreted, but I grew up in a world in which I was a man and the everybody else was in one category called women and children. And that meant if the ship's going down, that means until all the women and children are in the motherfucking rowboats or the inflatable life rafts, I'm drowning, right? That means until we put all the women and children on the boats, that means if all the boats are full, I'm dead, right? That means when the barbarians are are on the ridge line, that means I got to pick up whatever's at hand and I got to go fight them, and they might just kill my ass, right? But but not the women and the children. See, and that what are we fighting for? By the way, that's the world I grew up in. Whether or not that world existed or not, that's how I was socialized. So I never looked down on women, but the fact is, by the time my balls dropped and my testosterone started kicking in, and I like to say by age 12, but the reality is by age 14, if I was at my house, my family it wasn't my house. If I was at the family home and it was me, my mom, and my sisters, and my dad was at work, guess who was in charge? Now I wasn't in charge of telling people what to do, but I was the man of the house. And as the man of the house, I outranked my mother, meaning if there was a knock at the door, right? And it's somebody trying to do something bad, or uh uh somebody kicks in the back door, right? Or like what happened one time, my grandmother started tripping and got worked up into some sort of religious tizzy, and her and my mom got into it, and I think it was over the Jehovah's Witness thing. I think my grandma got real worked up over the Jehovah's Witness thing. My dad wasn't there, and I just walked to the back door, 14 years old, opened the back door, and said to my grandmother, who I was close to, I was her favorite, I said, I think it's time for you to leave. And just stood there and didn't have to raise my voice. At 14 years old, I was in charge. And culturally, she recognized, oh, the man of the house is telling me to get the fuck up out of here. I better get the fuck up out of here. And she fucking left. And we never spoke about it. The next time I saw her, everything was fine. There was no animosity, but I was in motherfucking charge of when shit goes wrong. But when I wasn't in charge of, hey, get off the phone. You've been talking on the phone to your buddy too long. Or I wasn't in charge of, by then they figured out I wasn't ever going to do my homework. But, I wasn't in charge of, hey, I know you're going to your buddy's house. I need you home by 9 o'clock or whatever. I wasn't in charge of that. But I was in charge of, whatever the manly parts of the house was by the time I was 14, because that's the culture in which I grew up in. So yeah, it is women and children as a category. And the fact is, and this is why I blame men, because you can't call it a Christian nation. And by the way, I don't call myself a Christian. You can't call it a Christian nation and not have a God, man, woman, child, animal hierarchy. And we don't have that in this country. That is no longer the hierarchy in this country. Period. End of story. And if this job doesn't work out, I'm going to take it as a sign, right? If this drug test doesn't work out, I'm going to take it as a sign of I'm probably supposed to be in the local areas preaching this message to the locals. Like, hey, y'all are driving around in your $100,000 trucks, and you're taking advantage of certain things that America has to offer. And look at what you've let happen. Look at what's going on in your home. Look at who wears the pants, right? Look at what you've allowed to happen to your like. Look at all of these things, right? Like, how is this you, not you, but how is this them living what they claim to believe in, right? It's not. It's not. And it's not good enough. And again, I'm not the judge. I can't speak for whatever that is, whatever you want to call it, the universe, the most high. And I know I'm preaching, but we're getting to the end of this thing anyway. But I'm pretty sure that if I get to the end of my life and if there's a judgment, and again, there has to be room for doubt. I can't be sure there's going to be a judgment, but if there's going to be a judgment, I'm pretty sure nothing short of the genuine article is going to suffice, right? I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case. Nothing short of the genuine article is going to suffice, which means if people went to church and worked a job and paid their taxes and were conservatives and believed that they were traditional family values, but they did not live a God, man, woman, child, animal hierarchy, how are they going to make it? How is that a straight path through a narrow gate, right? If that's a thing, you tell me. Like, I just don't understand why do people believe? Why do people have allowed the enemy to trick them and fool them into thinking that they are doing what it's going to take to get past the judgment? Again, I'm not the judge, but I'm pretty sure, just based on simple things that I see, that this can't be the thing. And if it is the thing, I don't want no part of it. If what I'm seeing out here is good enough to get past the judgment, I don't want no part of it. How about that? If what I'm seeing out here is the standard of good enough to make it past the judgment, I don't want no part to do with it. Just go ahead and destroy me. Go ahead and cast me in the lake of fire. Go ahead and when you separate the wheat from the tare, I guess I'm going with the tares, Jack, because this ain't good enough. If this is what's going to be the cream of the crop, and this is what's going to be considered the wheat, and I guess I'm a tare. Fine with me, because you know why? Because I've sinned it, Jack. Full send. I'm all in, baby. I'm all in. I'm putting my name on it. I'm voting with my feet, and I don't want nothing to do with this world as I see it. Now, I have no choice. I live in it, right? That's a sentiment. I don't want nothing to do with this world at a level of sentiment. But this is the valley of the shadow of death. I have no choice but to walk every day in this, right? Which is honestly, uh, if they did decide that I need to file a tax return and they sent me to federal prison, if that happened, that actually solves a lot of my problems in a way. Then I don't need to concern myself with living in society. But even then, that could even arguably be a version. Thank you, sir. Send it, partner. Even then, that could be a version of, they feed the prisoners, right? They house the prisoners, So I know this, no matter what happens, I have been provided for. I am being provided for, and I will continue to be provided for. And if the day comes that I don't have food to eat, well, guess what? Jesus fasted. So I don't know what to tell you. I probably need to fast anyway. In fact, I'm going to fast. I've just been putting it off. So there's always that. So, I'm pretty sure, uh, and this is what I figured it out is, whatever that force is, we don't have to call it God, right? We don't have to call it Jesus. We can call it the universe. We can call it source, whatever you want to call it. I'm all in. I'm sending it, right? I'm putting my name on it. I'm serving that force if I'm able to. And if that force has it in its plans, which, by the way, how could I know ahead of time what that force's plans are? That seems crazy to me. To me, that's the number one way to see that Christianity is way off base, because you go to the church and you go to all these religions, they seem 100% sure of what God's plan is. I'm like, if I'm out here, asking to be emptied of wickedness so that I can serve the kingdom of the Most High and do God's will in all of this and serve the universe or source or creation or whatever you want to call it, and that super intelligent force of love or whatever it is, that why would it, why would that intelligence ever, while I'm trying to become more aware and I'm leveling up, why would it degenerate and lower itself to think like I think, right? Meaning, how could I know its plans ahead of? How is that even possible? Now, could it directly, connect with me and make its plans known? Yeah, possibly. Again, I don't. How would I know? That's above my pay grade. It's none of my business, right? I'm just astonished. And this is, again, there's no such thing as common sense. It seems obvious to me, at least at this point, right? It's obvious to me. So I've divorced a part of sending it is, you know, if we think about a rifle, and send it meaning send the round, right? So if I'm the gun, if I'm the vessel, right, in this analogy, and then I pull the trigger to send it, that's God's bullet. The bullet coming out of the barrel, that's God's message, right? That's God's plan. I didn't form that. I didn't create that. I didn't make that. I'm the mechanism, I'm the substrate, or the means, right? I'm the means by which that can be carried out if I can do what? Go within my energy sphere, reckon with what needs to be reckoned with, get over myself, level myself up, and get out of my own way enough to even be usable, right? Um, and that's my fulfillment. I'm really not fulfilled by it. Now I am here and there. I enjoy certain things, but ultimately that's been my ultimate fulfillment, has been, the times, and it when it does happen, when I am used by that force, right? And the way I feel when I'm used by that force. And I had no idea 5 minutes ago I'd be talking this way, and you know, uh, just I don't really even have the words to describe that. And the reality is, this is where I get into trouble with other people, is because a lot of folks have never had any of those experiences, and I never had them. I went the first 35 plus years of my life and had none of those experiences of, a direct experience of whatever that is, however you want to describe it, right? And until I did, and that is part of my testimony. And um, the times that I am filled with the Holy Spirit, if that's what we're calling it, whatever that is, and it's acting through me, I have the abilities to know when that's happening, right? If I'm smart enough and in touch with myself enough, I am aware of when that's happening. I'm also aware that that is a thing that people will attempt to fake, right? And that I'm free to go out here and use my powerful preaching abilities and start a ministry. And next thing you know, I'm pastoring a church and all of this. And that's now we've created a system of man which is corrupt by definition and will be inhabited by demons. No, I'm not finna do that. I'm not finna do that. So again, if it's part of my path to go drive a truck and get my ducks in a row financially, and maybe do that for the long term. Who knows? Maybe I'll end up, driving 2,500 a week on average, and more so as a way to provide myself with food and shelter, right? And as inflation increases and such, eventually it may get to the point where that's all the job provides me is, to keep me out of the elements, and for me to be able to eat food, and occasionally buy a pair of pants or a pair of shoes or whatever. Right? That's okay with me. Anyway, I'm the greenhouse effect. It's freezing. It's been pretty cold this morning, but I'm getting a phone call. Drug test results probably came in, but yeah, kind of forgot what I was saying. It's probably for the best. But see, I'm not in any way, and this is, part of the blessing slash curse of being raised in a mind control cult called the Jehovah's Witnesses. See, I can't prescribe for other people how to be. Now, the ones who are claiming to live based on a religion and a book and a church, absolutely, I can be critical of them, and I can, perhaps if they are receptive, I can deliver a message that may originate outside of me and may flow through me to someone who needs to hear that particular message, right? Someone who may have a desire to serve the force of good, the force of love, the force of creation, and who is unknowingly, because the enemy has tricked them, is unknowingly serving destruction and is unknowingly serving the enemy, and it has in fact been delivered into the hands of the enemy unknowingly, right? And again, that's not my business. If that message, if that message passes through me and finds a receptive audience, right? On occasion, I didn't do that. That's what I did. Was I did my job. My part of the puzzle was getting out of my own way enough to be suitable in my. But see, I'm not speaking for that force, because some people would already say, "Well, God can use whoever." Now, I'm not. But again, no, we're not speaking for God. I won't speak for God. And if I do, if I catch myself slipping, I will correct myself. I'm speaking for myself from my own perspective. I put it on myself to maintain myself in certain ways to be ready, willing, and able, right, to be used in that way, right? And my understanding of this spirituality, of spiritual matters, dude, it's getting, and I don't, at the risk of sounding arrogant, it's reaching such a high level now. Um, it just is. It's continuing to level up. And, I wrote some things recently, just, I typed it into the YouTube comments on this guy's channel, and, I screenshotted it, and I went back and read it, and I was just like, yeah, man, this is like densely packed. Fucking, it's there, man. Just only a person who understands these concepts at a very high level is capable of writing something like that. But then I'm looking at a person who ran a successful YouTube channel called Rob the Nomad, and he was homeless for a very long period of time, lived outdoors for a very long period of time, got popular on YouTube doing like bushcraft and living, out in the woods, but near urban areas, and pitching camps, and far beyond my ability, by the way. And but still working temp jobs here and there, not necessarily growing his own food or whatever, but people are very attracted to that sort of thing. But then at a certain point he got to where his audience was giving him enough money that he was like buying a car with the money. And then he had car insurance and tags, and he was getting enough money between donations and his YouTube ad revenue to, he went out and bought a new used car, right? Well, now we're back to the Fight Club concept of the things I own end up owning me, right? So now he's created a nut for himself, and he's probably got some kind of psychological issues. I think he's admitted to, he said he doesn't drink or do drugs, but he's admitted to some social issues and some psychological issues. And I've got my own versions of that to some extent, but I would like to think I'm transcending, meaning I'm, again, the only way out is through. I would like to think I've demonstrated that I'm moving through a lot of those things. And, um, I definitely see evidence of my progress in my interactions with other people. I definitely have, basically, we're at pretty much zero autistic freakouts anymore. That's pretty much a thing of the past. But, so eventually he got to where, when I started out this stream, earlier in the stream, I was talking about part of the reason I left LA was the financial pressures and the pressures of having a car. My car insurance is the first thing to run out next month because I'd prepaid for a year. Then the tags are going to be out the end of May. I'm going to need to get my license renewed in Arkansas, or get a Cali license, which is doable, but it's going to involve. I might just not be willing to do what it would take to make that happen, right? And so this guy Rob, he had his own version of that, where they don't see these people don't tell us on the front end what's going on, and he actually grifted his audience really hard, so much so that he got a lot of pushback in his comments where people were basically like, "Hey, this guy's an e-beggar." But my thing is like, yeah, I don't identify as an e-beggar, but I've definitely come on here and done e-begging. In fact, I've done it on this stream. Like, if I'm going to e-beg, I'll fucking own it. Like, this dude wasn't able to own the fact that he was e-begging. And so then he, got his feelings hurt over the audience pushing back. And then so he fucked off for a while. And eventually he got to where he wasn't getting the views on his YouTube content because he tried to do like, there's too many van life channels. There's too many people living in their car, right? So he wasn't able to hit the algorithm anymore because it's too fucking easy to do van life or sleep in a car. So he tried to do a couple of videos showing how he was living in a car. And by the way, he just didn't seem very good at it. Not that I am, but his audience wasn't interested in like watching him show himself live in a car. So then he didn't tell the audience, but apparently what he did was he drove the car after the tags and the insurance, and apparently his license expired, or he lost his license or whatever. So eventually he found a homeless shelter that would let him park his car there. And my apologies if you can hear, I'm having to use the restroom. Please forgive me. But if I try to stop, I'll lose my train of thought. And but at my age, it becomes a health necessity. I can only hold it for so long, and it becomes unhealthy. But Rob, and because I know enough about homeless life, I know what's happened. So he found a shelter that would let him park his car there until he can figure out what to do. But guess what he's got to do? See, it comes with conditions. Guess what he's got to do? Well, now in order to stay there and park his car there, he's got to go through the men's program. Well, what's the men's program? Well, we're going to teach you the Bible, little buddy. We're going to teach you. We're going to get you all cleaned up, and we're going to get you right with the Lord. Now, Rob's from Pennsylvania, so this is my own. I tend to think of these people in Southern terms, but we're going to get you right. And I am Southern, so it's easier for me to talk this way. But we're going to get you right with the Lord. We're going to clean you up. We're going to pick you up. We're going to lift you up. But we're going to need some things in exchange. We're going to need you to preach on Jesus. We're going to need you to become like us. We're going to need you to think like us. We're going to need you to look like us. We're going to need you to act like us, right? So now he's not making videos anymore, but his last video talking about how great Jesus is, right? But you can tell watching the video, he don't feel it. He ain't had no experience of Jesus. He's had an experience of getting to the end of his rope and finding a Christian organization that's going to prey on him, right? And use him up for its own purposes, demonically, by the way, and in a corrupt, demonic fashion. And it's going to take from him and use him up as much as it can, and then cast him aside. But as long as he thinks like them, looks like them, and acts like them, it's happy to have him around. He's welcome to all the free food, all the free lodging. They'll get him in a housing program if he wants. They'll get him a job. They'll get him into an apartment, right? They'll get him into city housing. All he's got to do is, go to church and, talk the right talk, talk the talk they want to hear, and walk the walk they want to see, right? But I'm going to tell you right now, whatever made me, whatever created me, it didn't create that. It didn't create a being that can get sent down here and get herded into a corral, right? So that now I can feel safe and secure, and I can be in that herd, and I can be protected. See, that I wasn't made that way. I ain't built that way. Right now, could I choose to do? Yeah, I could choose to go to a program locally. And in fact, I was looking it up on the phone. And I started to talk about this earlier, and I moved on to another topic, but because I really I didn't want to apply for truck driving jobs. I didn't feel it, right? And increasingly, I need to feel it. I can make myself do shit, but I really do need to have some level of inspiration, you know. And probably just tired and a little depressed from the driving and getting out of my routine, and you know, just didn't feel like applying for any of these jobs really. And then for a couple of days, so I got to researching these programs, and I found a program that might work for me. But I know the drill, right? And I know they're going to want to put me through Bible study, but they're going to put me. You're going to put me with my high level understanding through y'all's program? Good luck with that, partner. And you know, it would almost be worth it just for the exercise, just to, you know, they would learn something. I wouldn't learn anything. They would learn something. So I went and posted in Rob's comments, basically, you know, because now he's talking about starting a ministry. When the reality is he doesn't have. There's some level of attainment, you know, some level of advancement required to be able to do certain things. Like he just doesn't have it. You know, he's trying to fake the funk. And you know, that ain't gonna get it. That's lukewarm. Faking the funk. That's lukewarm. You know, the Bible says rather to be hot or cold. But you lukewarm gets just spat out of the mouth. You know, we and but see, he's never gonna get. And Rob, he's capable of reaching a high level of understanding. He could, you know, he could surpass my current level of understanding. It's never gonna happen by doing what those bozos tell him what to do. By studying the Bible with those bozos. It's never going to happen. It's just not possible. That's right. Stay positive, partner. And you know, half the people in those programs, they know it's just a thing. It's just they know they're faking it. They're just like, okay, this is just what I have to do, you know, to get back on my feet. And I'd be willing to, but I'm not going to fake it in the Bible study, right? They're gonna be, you know, now they're gonna have to contend with me and my mind, right? And my phone that I can whip out and just say, well, actually, how about this other thing, right? Or how about we read that entire chapter and not just that one verse, you know? Oh, okay, I understand you're trying to beat me upside the head with Romans 13 or whatever, but you know, what about this other thing over here, you know? Uh, you know, and I don't even mean a whataboutism. I just mean a you know, it's not a whataboutism. It's a me forcing them to contend with the realities that when an organization starts their own Bible study men's program, they can just leave out whatever they want to leave out. They don't go through the entirety of the Bible. They can leave out whatever they want to leave out. They are able to weaponize the scripture against the person, which is what? That's corrupt and that's demonic. And that's why I say all religion is corrupt. All systems of man, including religion, are corrupt, including Christianity. They are and demonized. That's just a fact. I didn't make it that way. Oh, I've studied the Quran, not fully, but yeah. I mean, now I am more of a Bible guy these days, but you know, my original my original foundation in my spiritual practice was mostly Eastern stuff. Although arguably, I mean, the Bible falls into that, right? But we all know what I mean by Eastern. But Buddhist and some Hindu stuff, and then I got into the Jesus and the Christ stuff. Originally, I was a lot of that study, and again, I was indoctrinated with a ton of this stuff. Even if my parents hadn't been Jehovah's Witnesses, I still would have gotten a ton of indoctrination, being from the Bible Belt, right? So I had plenty of Jesus, you know, growing up. But then I started. There's some really interesting books called Second Coming of the Christ, Second Coming of Christ, The Resurrection of Christ Within You, or something like that, by Paramahansa Yogananda, 2-volume set. Studied most of that. That was very interesting, and I could tell he was he missed the mark in certain ways because he was a Hindu. But the thing about Hindus is, since it's polytheistic, they actually are able to just slot Jesus right in. And apparently Gandhi supposedly was a big Jesus guy. Apparently, I mean, that's what they say, whoever they is. But and Gandhi was a psyop, and fucking probably MK Ultra and all of that, as we know. I mean, he might have been pre MK Ultra, but whatever. Certainly a tool of the state, whether he knew it or not. Well, and you got to look at where I'm at on the map, and I don't disagree with you, Clump. I'm in a hardcore area for what I'm describing. Just where I happen to be physically located right now is it's off the charts for that sort of thing. They will absolutely help you, but only under certain circumstances, right? And I mean, like, put you in a job, put you in an apartment, right? Help you out, give you what you need. Absolutely. Resource after resource after resource after resource. So I'm not even putting these people down. I'm coming at them at the level of doctrine. I'm coming at them at the level of, I understand that they think they're serving God, but is that really what's happening here, right? Or what they believe God is? I'm even hesitant to even use that loaded terminology without, some sort of going off on a tangent to even explain what do I even mean by that, right? Yeah, that's right. Good luck being offered free parking by Muslims. Yeah, no kidding. We do have an increasing number of Hindu establishments here in the States, Razvan, who do allow free parking, I must say. But, and I'm not even saying these organizations are doing anything wrong. What I'm saying is that is not a direct path to Christ, in my opinion. Does that mean nobody's ever? And again, what do we even mean by path to Christ? See, we're already back to the loaded, coded terminology, and like I probably need to talk for 45 minutes about what does that even mean. See, like I can't even really address a lot of these topics because like I don't even know what I'm talking about without clarifying it. You know, but back to the truck driving thing, it was like, am I really going to? So I even called one of the places. I was like, hey, because what it is they have a shelter, they have a men's shelter, and you get to stay there for 3 nights, right? But then after their 3 nights are up, it's $6 a night, which I don't have a problem with necessarily. But it turns out, basically, unless you have a job or you can get a job of your own, we're going to need to put you in this men's program, right? And then, presumably we'll either get you a job or you can work here or you can just sweep up and that'll suffice for your $6, right? Like I'm able to sort of read between the lines of all these things. But I even called him, was like, hey, and this will tell you something about the level of strictness around here. Because I mentioned Rob found one of these organizations that let him park his car even though his tags were expired, he had no insurance, and he had no license. I called him and I said, hey, if I come down there to check into the shelter, do y'all have a place where I can park my car? And the first thing she said after yes was, you got to have valid tags, you got to have valid insurance, and you got to have a valid driver's license. I said, I have all of the above. And then I said, what time do people show up? And because people have this idea of, even my dad at one point said, well, I don't want to stay in a homeless shelter. And people have this idea of like, the homeless shelter is just a place you go when you don't have any place to go. Guess what? You can't just show up at the motherfucking homeless shelter and they let you in. It don't work that way. So she's like, yeah, we do our intakes at 1:30, Monday through Friday. So if I had chosen to, I would have showed up at 1:30 Monday through Friday, right? Like you got to know the game. It's a whole bureaucracy. It's a whole system. All systems of man. Man, in my view, is not capable of creating and operating systems that are free of corruption. That means the men's program is corrupted, right? Despite their intentions. These people, when they created the men's program down there, it's got some kind of name, I've forgotten, some cheesy name, but did they intend to create a corrupt? No, they're not capable of creating an organization free from corruption. Why is that? Because they're humans. Because they're humans. Oh yeah, Sikhs are great. I love the Sikhs. Yeah, and Christians are very generous. Look, I'm not bashing Christians at the level of their generosity. Uh, I'm pretty sure the last two generous donations I've gotten, probably both of those people consider themselves to be Christians. I'm not here to bash Christians, right? It's more of a um, basically all I can say at this point is a mind control cult called the Jehovah's Witnesses never would shut the fuck up about the truth, and uh, so much so that I can still remember, I can still sing parts of their songs that have to do with speaking out in fearlessness. And the fact is, if I know something to be true, I will just fucking say it. And it's also probably part of the undiagnosed fake autism, right? It is what it is at that on that level. So I don't know what to tell you. Well, there you go. That's right. Well, I am from time to time, Razvan, and thank you for your charity. And what I'll say about that is, Razvan, about a charity case is I grew up in an area where most of the people considered themselves to be not just Christians, but very Christian, and they all would state a desire to give charity, but all of them thought it was shameful to ever accept charity. Now, this is why I talk about there's no such thing as common sense, because at a certain point, even as a young person, I recognize, well, wait a minute, if all of y'all want to give, but all of you see the shame in receiving, and culturally we view it as shameful to receive the charity, that means they want to give and there's nobody to give to, right? So in a way, and you know, it's going to sound bad. I really don't have any way to say this without sounding bad, but I think it's great that Razvan's not a charity case. The fact is, for various reasons, I am a charity case at times, and you know, we know because we've talked about it. Razvan has given me charitable contributions, and I'm grateful for it. And the fact is, giving is receiving on some level. You know, I can't speak for what Razvan receives at a level of his giving, but I would say this: I would never want him to give out of an obligation. You know, I would never want him to give because he felt like that's what he needed to do. And I'll say this, I don't need, you know, I'm good right now. But I know this when, you know, and I started to make this point earlier, which is, you know, if God needs me to have, and again, what does God even mean? So if whatever that is, whatever we're calling it today, whatever that force is, I just call it the Most High. If the Most High needs me to have money to achieve to be able to serve the Most High, I will have money. Right now, whether that's me driving a truck and earning it, whether it's at times receiving donations, whether it's people in the local area contributing to me directly, I know, and I trust that I will be provided for on that level. You know, if I need a new pair of shoes, I will have a new. If I need a new pair of shoes to do the will of the Most High and to be used as a vessel, right? To do God's business, I will have a new pair of shoes. If not, what I have now will suffice. If not, I'm from Arkansas and we're known for going barefoot at times, right? And this is just what has happened. It's what is happening. It's what will continue to happen. And thank y'all for the donations. I have what I need, right? Um, and I don't plan to continue asking beyond what I need, right? But if people gave more, you know, that'd be okay too, right? So you know, probably I would just end up finding someone else in need, as I did several times in LA. Probably I would end up finding somebody else in need and pass some of that forward or pay some of that forward. But I guess better get out of here. I am getting a little dehydrated. Well, let me chug this water and then we'll wrap up. Oh, good. Glad. Well, thank you for clarifying, Razvan. Yeah, that was more of a cultural failing where I'm from. So if I implied that that was like where if it was like that where you were from, I that was not my intention. But yeah, my where I'm from, the people did not seem to understand that if everybody was too ashamed to accept charity, then that meant there was not going to be any giving because there's nobody to give to, except for grifters who would just fake it and who probably don't need it, right? Actual grifters. Oh, is Heathrow being sabotaged? Hmm. I'm gonna check my email. I got an email earlier that I think might be job related, potential new job related. No, negative. Carlitos says, "Stay safe, Raz. The Russians already attacking, sabotaging Heathrow Airport." Razvan said, "Really? Yep. MI5 confirmed on the news. Wow, it's all happening." Well, I guess I'm out of here. Need to get these batteries charged and get back to my day. Thanks again for the generous donations. Much appreciated as always. And thanks for listening. Bye.